Renxue, I open a tavern and get Zhu Zhuqing drunk. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176, The Most Beautiful Woman in the World. Tell me about it. Yes, we are all very curious. What kind of women does the boss like? Can we change it? In the future, women who come to the tavern will probably dress according to the boss's aesthetics. Yes, I think the most beautiful one must be Poseidon. That's you. The most beautiful one must be the Pope. She is beautiful and kind. Nonsense, Miss Bridget is invincible. ... Before Liu Chang'an spoke, the tavern was already lively. Both men and women were interested in this topic. Facing a pair of expectant eyes, Liu Chang'an thought, anyway, there is no business now, why not have a lively time? Okay, but I want to make one thing clear. The ranking I gave is just my personal aesthetics, and there is no authority. You can just listen to it for the time being. Among the beauties in the whole continent, I only take the top 10, and they are at this stage. Liu Chang'an finished explaining. Everyone nodded to show that they understood. But since it was the ranking given by the boss, although the boss was modest, they dared not ignore it. Once the beauty list is released, it will be the most authoritative. Let's start with the 10th place. Liu Chang'an spoke slowly, Min's clan, by Xiang. As soon as these words came out, everyone was surprised. Almost no one has heard of this girl. She can actually be ranked 10th in the whole continent. There are also members of the Min's clan here. Hearing this, they smiled and said complacently, our young lady's appearance is that of a beautiful girl from a small family. No, a lady from a big family, beautiful as bubbles. Seeing his smug look, everyone became more curious. Speaking of which, Bai Xiang's face is somewhat like that of an adult Xiao Wu. Although not as good, it is not much worse. Liu Chang'an did not explain, nor did he show them the photo. The 9th place is Xue Binja from Qian Renxue College. As soon as Liu Chang'an said this, the tavern exploded. How is it possible? Goddess Binja is only ranked 9th. How beautiful must the top 8 be? I don't accept it. A fanatical fan was immediately dissatisfied. The next second, the person next to him hurriedly covered his mouth. This person reacted and his face turned pale. All the fans cooled down. This is a pub, not a place for their fan club. Dare to be angry, but dare not speak. They can only bury this dissatisfaction in their hearts. Secretly think that from this moment on, the beauty list given by the boss is indeed not authoritative. The boss hasn't finished the list yet. Maybe the first 8 are prettier than Xue Binja. Someone sang the opposite tune and supported Liu Chang'an. Of course, they really believed it, but it is unknown whether they were licking dogs. Zhu Zhuqing patted her sister's butt. Do you think we can make the list? Zhu Zhuqing snorted coldly and ignored her. If she didn't make the list, would Liu Chang'an make her unable to get out of bed every day and drink fine wine every day to relieve stress? 8th place, Zhu Zhuqing. Liu Chang'an said. Zhu Zhuqing pursed her lips, and a hint of joy flashed in her eyes. As long as she is a woman, there is no woman who doesn't care about her appearance. Zhu Zhuqing sighed. Her appearance is not as good as her sister. It seems that she can't make the list. The male fans who support Xue Binja sighed slightly. Even with their critical eyes, it is difficult to say against their will that Zhu Zhuqing is not as good as Xue Binja. Of course, in their opinion, the appearance can only be equal. The problem is that Zhu Zhuqing's advantage in the meatball is too big. 7th place, Within Hall, Liana. Liu Chang'an said. Everyone agreed with what he said. They have all experienced the charm of that vixen. Obviously, her appearance cannot surpass any of the following 3 women, but the temptation she exudes is the strongest. 6th place, Ocean Sect, Tang Yui. 5th place, Xing Dou Great Forest, BG. 4th place, Poseidon Island, Poseidon. Liu Chang'an read out 3 names in succession. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. These 3 sentences, like a thunderbolt stronger than a thunderbolt, flashed in everyone's heart. Most people showed an unwilling look. But they dared not say a word. They were all slandering in their hearts that the boss was invincible, but his aesthetics, not as good as theirs. Miss BG was only ranked 5th. Goddess Poseidon has the world in her heart and is unparalleled in the world. It would be unfair if she didn't make it into the top 3. Liu Chang'an didn't care about their mood and said, the 3rd one is Qian Renxue from the Spirit Hall. Is there such a person in the spirit hall? I haven't heard of her. And aren't there almost no people left in the angel clan? Why is there another person with the surname Qian? Come to think of it, we haven't seen Qian Renxue, and we don't know if she is worthy. But the feminized version of Zhu Zhuqing, the eldest prince of the Qian Dou Empire, is really stunningly beautiful. I think she can be on the list too. Are you stupid? That's a man. No matter how beautiful he is, he can't be on the list. Liu Chang'an paused for a few seconds and said, second place, Bibi Dong from the Spirit Hall. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. The Spirit Hall really has beauties. 3 of them are on the list. That's not right. We've already talked about all the famous beauties on the continent. What else can match the most beautiful woman in the world? I think the human body of the 100,000-year-old demon soul great white shark is not bad. No matter who is number 1, no matter what the cost, I have to see her. How beautiful does she have to be to suppress so many goddesses? Liu Chang'an said, first, Queen Medusa, Qian. Silence. Everyone was silent, racking their brains, thinking about who this Queen Medusa was. But, how could they know about a beauty from another world? And the name Qian, although she has the title of Valkyrie in the outside world, has not yet spread to the Tavern. Dai Kai looked at Liu Chang'an with resentment, and said aggrievedly, Boss, what about me, what about me? I'm the 11th, right? You tell me the 11th, I won't agree. Dai Kai wanted to hug Liu Chang'an and act coquettishly, but was blocked by a transparent wall. 11th? That must be 9 wrong from the 7 treasures glazed sect. Liu Chang'an thought for a while and said, Oh. Boss is so bad. Dai Kai stamped his feet and snorted. Zhu Zhuqing asked curiously, Boss, what does Queen Medusa Qian look like? Show us, why is she the first? Everyone present looked over. The men were curious, but the women were not convinced. Why can Queen Medusa win the title of the most beautiful? Even if the boss's aesthetics are not authoritative, the title of the most beautiful will be firmly pinned on her head by virtue of her status. You all want to see it? Liu Chang'an asked in surprise. Yes. We all want to see the most beautiful face. I can't imagine a woman more beautiful than Goddess Poseidon. Miss Bridget is the best in the world. Liu Chang'an shook his head helplessly and said, then wait a moment, I will project the scene of her challenging the 7 treasures glazed sect. Chapter 177. Bibi Dong is unhappy. After defeating Yu Yuanxin, Qian asked Zhu Ben to take her to the next stop, the 7 treasures glazed tile sect. After learning that Yu Yuanxin was a level 95 titled Douluo, one of the top powers in the Douluo world, Qian looked down on the Douluo world even more. You know, she didn't even use 30% of her strength to defeat Yu Yuanxin. And her strength in the Great Continent is just that. It can't even touch the core. In the Great Continent, she shrank in the desert. Coming here, she is the strongest and can bring her people to get better environmental conditions. How to choose, you don't need to think about it. On this day, she came to the Iron Castle of the 7 treasures glazed tile sect and was received by 9 Fengzi and Sword and Bone Douluo. Don't talk nonsense, I'll come. Qian got straight to the point. As soon as she opened her mouth, her face suddenly changed. Boom. A muffled thunder rolled over their heads. 9 Fengzi and others also looked up. This breath is vast and great, and it is definitely not something that ordinary people can possess. The sky was changing, and the clouds were swept away, revealing a blue sky, and then a scene was reflected on it. It was a tavern. In the tavern, Liu Chang'an and a group of people were looking down. Boss. 9 Fengzi clasped his fists. Qian Renxue also introduced to Douluo, this is the boss. You must remember not to act rashly in front of the boss and show the most sincere respect. Douluo nodded slightly. What a joke, with this method, how dare he not be in awe? Qian frowned. The method used by Liu Chang'an was unheard of even in their Great Continent. Is there a strong person in the Douluo world? Zhu Ben had never seen Liu Chang'an, but he had known about it for a long time. Now he didn't dare to pretend to be a playboy and deliberately offend Liu Chang'an. It's like this, I want to show your battle scene. In return, how about 3 fine wines and an extra chance of earthly wine? Liu Chang'an asked with a smile. Of course. Qian Renxue agreed immediately. Let alone giving benefits, even if Liu Chang'an doesn't give anything, they will be happy to accept it. At least it means that the boss has you in his heart. Qian narrowed her eyes, no matter how she sensed, she couldn't detect Liu Chang'an's location. Moreover, she didn't know what conditions Liu Chang'an offered. Queen, agree to the boss, Zhu Beng said with a smile. Kailin didn't answer but asked, is he the strongest here? Yes. However, the boss doesn't seem to actively intervene in the situation on the continent, and he is a kind god, like now. Zhu Beng was about to flatter him. Kailin said, he doesn't have the spirit of a strong man, and looks more like an ordinary person. Zhu Beng was stunned. No, Queen sister, don't commit suicide, okay? It is said that the sea god came to challenge, but he didn't even touch the corner of the tavern owner's clothes. If you keep doing this, I'm afraid you will be finished before I can borrow your strength. Fortunately, Kailin had no intention of making an enemy. Okay, I promise you. I will taste that wine. Liu Chang'an nodded with a smile. The faces of the men in the tavern behind him almost all showed a look of amazement. At this moment, they almost all thought that Queen Medusa's throne of the most beautiful woman was well deserved. Okay, then stop talking nonsense, and fight quickly. I still have to go to a Russian sect. Kailin crossed his hands, raised them upwards, stretched his body, and showed his graceful figure. Many people present stared straight at him. Jian Luo's eyelids jumped, and he took the 7-killing sword and said coldly, come on. The sword light was bright and the killing intent was boiling. Jian Luo walked out of his own way, and his sword energy was sharp and unparalleled, but he still lost. The huge 7-killing sword shattered into countless pieces. Jian Luo fell to the ground and staggered back a few steps before he stabilized his body. He vomited blood and stained his clothes red. Looking at Kailin in disbelief, Jian Luo said, how much strength did you use? Although it was hard to accept in his heart, Jian Luo had to admit that the other party did not use his full strength. Kailin pinched her waist with one hand, looked at Jian Luo with a little more solemnity, and said, you are very good, 50% strength. Jian Luo's overall strength is only about 40% of her strength. But Jian Luo's attack is indeed unparalleled. Jian Luo smiled sadly, took out the wine of everlasting life, drank it in one gulp, and the aura of weakness on his body was swept away, his soul power was restored, and his injuries healed. Kailin's pupil shrank and stared at Jian Luo. In her impression, there is no such magical elixir in the Bibi Continent. It has been 3 days since Kailin challenged the 7 Treasures Glazed sect. The name of the Valkyria has become even more popular. At the same time, the goddess list from the tavern has flooded at an unparalleled speed. As the center of the entire continent, the tavern has set up eyes here by various forces, and anything will be immediately radiated outward. What's more, the goddess list is such a talk of the town news. Liu Chang'an said that his aesthetic standards were not authoritative, but since he had already ranked them, who would dare to say no? Even if Liu Chang'an didn't mind, there were still people who wanted to lick him. The spirit hall naturally got the news faster. In the Pope's hall, Bibi Dong lifted her slender legs, her high heels spinning, making people want to take her shoes off. Ling Yuan Luo next to her looked at Bibi Dong with envy. She knew why the Pope was happy. The Pope ranked second in the goddess list of the entire continent. What a great honor. Ling Yuan Luo couldn't help but be jealous. His voice was full of sourness, and he said, Your Majesty, the boss is really something. He obviously likes your appearance, so why doesn't he see any special treatment for you? Bibi Dong's face froze, she raised her chin slightly, and said, You were a bit shy. Bibi Dong commented like this, but there was a bit of guilt in her eyes. Only Liu Chang'an was not around, otherwise she wouldn't dare to say it. Ling Yuan Luo smiled and said, Speaking of which, how beautiful can Kailin, the Queen of Medusa, be? Who can surpass the Pope's beauty? Will the boss treat her specially when he sees her? Bibi Dong narrowed her eyes and said, Kailin, the Valkyria has become famous recently. Very good, she has stirred up the wind and clouds. The next stop is the Russian sect. The opponent should be Tang Chen. Then, we should also join in the fun. Yes, I will arrange it right away. Ling Yuan Luo said. A Russian sect? Ha ha ha, that little girl is coming to our Russian sect. Good, good, I'm also curious about how strong the so-called #1 beauty is. Tang Chen raised his head and roared to the sky. Everyone in the Russian sect was delighted, and they didn't care about this challenge. Before the tavern appeared, no one could really defeat the ancestor Tang Chen. Even if the times have changed now, it is not possible for just anyone to defeat her. Grandfather, before you go out, I want to practice with her first. Tang Xiao was very excited. Chapter 178 Kailin vs. Aatian Zone in the tavern. After seeing the beauty and strength of Queen Medusa, everyone was silent for a long time. Before seeing Queen Medusa, almost everyone was dissatisfied with Liu Chang'an's ranking. especially the rankings of Poseidon, Qian Renxue, and Xiao were very controversial. What they have in common is that they are dissatisfied with Queen Medusa, who is ranked first. Why can she be ranked first? Now, many people have directly rebelled. I agree that Queen Medusa is ranked first. I guess only Queen Medusa can sit firmly in this position. Otherwise, I will not accept anyone. You traitor. You said before that Miss Bibi is the best in the world. This can't be blamed on others. It's really that Queen Medusa is too charming. Her charm is stronger than Ulena, and her appearance is the same as the Pope. But her temperament, yes. The tavern was lively. Xiao pouted, unwilling that she couldn't even get a ranking. Are you talking about age? Zhu Zhuqing, who was the same age as her, was on the list, and Rong was ranked 11th. But she was not on the list. Am I ugly? Deming. Xiao asked unwillingly. Deming shook his head and said, Sister Xiao is very beautiful, and she will definitely be the most beautiful in the future. Auntie is an unparalleled beauty in the world, and Sister Xiao will be like this too. Erming echoed, yes, I can't understand why they say that Queen Medusa is beautiful. She looks so fragile that she probably can't even withstand a punch from me. Xiao rolled her eyes at her stupid brother. According to his aesthetic standards, she will also be an ugly girl in the future. Zhu Zhuqing looked at Liu Chang'an with resentment and said sullenly, Boss, what about me? I'm Zhuqing's sister, we look very similar, and I'm more charming than her. How come she can be ranked and not me? I also think that the boss is avoiding talking about our beauty. She snorted and puffed out her chest, but of course she couldn't compare to her former sister-in-law in size. Liu Chang'an shook his head slightly. These guys are really troublesome. They asked him to give a ranking before, and now they are asking for something else. He had already informed them in advance that it was not authoritative. Keep watching. Soon, it will be the time for Queen Medusa to challenge the Aoshan sect. Liu Chang'an changed the subject. He was indeed very curious whether the top Duhuang of Douluo Continent could defeat the 99-level titled Luo of Douluo Continent. Everyone was alert and looked at the light curtain. The Spirit Hall is located between the two empires. Bibi Dong and her group soon arrived at the Aoshan sect. Now the Spirit Hall has changed its way to maintain peace. The original enemies are also reconciling. Bibi Dong came to the Aoshan sect in person and gave a visiting card according to the rules. The Aoshan sect also gave them face and invited them to join the sect. As soon as they arrived, Kailin and Zubeng and their group also arrived. This group of people gathered in the hall of the Aoshan sect. It was difficult for the men present not to look at the beautiful woman in red in the center of the hall. Ling Yuanluo raised his eyebrows slightly and sent a voice message to Bibi Dong. Pope, in terms of appearance, you're equally matched, and she may not be able to beat you. But in terms of femininity, Bibi Dong's face became serious, and she sent a voice message coldly. Femininity? This seat needs this kind of thing. It seems that the sultry man likes this type. Your Majesty, I heard that the boss's eyes will be focused here. Ling Yuanluo's face was embarrassed and sent a voice message to remind. Bibi Dong's face immediately changed, and she subconsciously covered her mouth. Her eyes were extremely flustered. She was only arrogant behind her back. Once Liu Chang'an knew about it, she would gossip behind her back and call her a sultry man. She would definitely not have a good time. Bibi Dong's sudden action attracted a group of curious eyes. But soon, their attention was attracted by Kailin's voice again. Don't talk nonsense, hurry up and challenge. Zubeng said that your Aoshan sect is the strongest sect on the continent. I want to see if it's true. Kailin hugged his shoulders, narrowed his narrow phoenix eyes, and stared at Tang Chen sitting in the main seat. Among the people present, only Tang Chen and Bibi Dong made her feel threatened. Among them, Tang Chen's aura seemed to be even stronger. Even Kailin had to pull up all her spirits. Tang Chen laughed heartily, looked at Queen Medusa, and said, You're a straightforward girl. I like you very much. If you lose, how about becoming my grandson's wife? I will personally match you. Grandfather. Tang Xiao's old face blushed and said helplessly. He has been a bachelor all his life and has only loved Ain. Although he was deeply amazed at the first sight of Queen Medusa. But this is not a reason for the ancestor to randomly match couples. Tang Xiao, is the leader of the Aoshan sect after all. How ridiculous it would be if it was spread out. You should beat me first. Kailin said lightly, not feeling offended. Good. Straightforward enough. But before fighting with me again, you should try it with my grandson first. Ha 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 ha, will the boss give us wine as a reward? Tang Chen laughed heartily. The next second, Liu Chang'an's voice rang out in the hall. That's as it should be. Thank you very much, we won't pay yuan wrongling wine, being oligarchy wine, Tang Chen laughed. Kai Ling glanced around, but still didn't find Liu Chang'an. Did you bring me here? How should I go back? You do this, Kai Ling shouted loudly in all directions. Zhu Ben was so scared that his face turned pale. He almost knelt down and begged her to stop talking. Kai Ling softened her words and continued, you have to be responsible for this. There was a dead silence in the hall. To be honest, they were all willing to be responsible for Queen Medusa. They could accept being slaves for a lifetime. But, that boss was not ordinary, and Beauty could not get special treatment from him. Queen Medusa said this, isn't she afraid of being punished? After a few seconds of silence, Liu Chang'an's voice sounded in the air again. Although you broke into the Medusa gate by yourself, it was indeed me who placed the gate in your bedroom. Okay, I can send you back and let you perfectly integrate the strange fire in your body. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Kai Ling's pupils shrank, and at this moment, she felt cold all over. She completely realized how mysterious and powerful this boss who had never appeared had. Almost no one except her knew that she had strange fire. But Liu Chang'an knew it all. Kai Ling hurriedly said, I have other wishes. Kai Ling wanted Liu Chang'an to transfer all her clansmen here, but she couldn't say it now. Liu Chang'an refused decisively, no. Kai Ling's face changed for a while, and she didn't dare to continue asking. Liu Chang'an acted very gentle, without the airs of a strong man, but it didn't mean that she could climb over his head. Beauty is a trump card when played with any cards, but if there is no strength, only beauty, it is a disaster. She should be thankful that Liu Chang'an has a high sense of justice, otherwise she should be pregnant now. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 179. Gratitude. Kai Ling and Tang Xiao left the hall one after the other. Everyone followed them out. Nine Fengzi and Douluo from the Seven Treasures glazed tile sect were among them. Old Senior Tang, this Miss Kai Ling is terrifyingly powerful. She defeated Uncle Jian, who was at level 98 of our sect, with less than half of her strength, and that was because Uncle Jian's attack was too fierce. If she were to fight against Golden Crocodile Duo, I'm afraid 40% of her strength would be enough. Nine Fengzi kindly reminded him, looking at Tang Chen worriedly. Jian Duo told him that Kai Ling's strength was stronger than the level 99 that Jian Duo had expected. Tang Chen might not be able to win. Tang Chen laughed loudly and said, little guy from the Nine family, you underestimate our world's #1 sect and the world's #1 weapon spirit. No matter how powerful the 7 killing sword is, can it defeat the Clear Sky Hammer and the Clear Sky 9 absolutes? That kid Tang Xiao, with my guidance and the fine wine, is now level 96, and can definitely burst out the power of level 98. That old guy Jin Crocodile? Ha ha, he can't compare to my grandson. Tang Chen said proudly. Nine Fengzi smiled helplessly and had nothing to say. At this time, they all left the hall and came to the big square. The battlefield was in the air, and a huge Clear Sky Hammer was held in the sky by an ant-like little man, constantly bombarding a red giant snake phantom. The blood-red energy was like blood from the sky, splashing like ink. Boom boom boom, Tang Xiao must have used all his strength right from the start. Empty, seal, penetrate, penetrate, entangle, shock, break, stop, collapse. The huge ocean hammer, which was as big as a small mountain, was played within Tang Xiao's hands, bombarding the giant snake phantom from different angles. There were bursts of thunder-like sounds. Is this all you can do? If that's all, there's no need to waste time with you. Kai Ling's irritable voice sounded. She was very rude, but all the men present didn't care. They even thought that this should be the privilege of the most beautiful woman in the world. Tang Chen shouted. Don't embarrass yourself, brat. Use your strongest ability. As soon as the voice fell, the ocean hammer in the air suddenly burst into a black and golden light. The light was heavy and breathtaking. Most of the people below couldn't stand this change, and covered their eyes and dared not look directly. I saw that the ocean hammer, which was originally as big as a small mountain, was expanding again. In the blink of an eye, it became more than 10 times larger, like a mountain pressing down on the top, with a terrifying power. This is worthy at being the #1 sect in the world. The legendary Great Humor Hammer. When Tang Yao first entered the titled Luo era, he seriously injured the 3 veteran titled Luos and became famous in one fell swoop. Too strong. What if it was used by Tang Chen, the ancestor? The Valkyrie has no hope of winning. ... Everyone shouted in surprise. The giant snake energy shadow in the air was motionless, as if it was scared silly. Tang Chen nodded slightly, looked at Nine Fengzi, and asked with a smile, "Nine boy, how about our Russian sect's Great Humor Hammer?" Nine Fengzi was slightly startled and praised. "It is really unparalleled in the world." "Ha ha ha, of course. Although I was tied with Qian Renxue and Poseidon back then, I was invincible in the air and invincible in the sea, hehe. It was all because their hard power could not match my Great Humor Hammer. Now tell me, who is stronger, me or this Valkyria?" Tang Chen asked with a smile. Nine Fengzi was stunned for a moment, shook his head and said, "I'm just a soldier, how can I have such vision?" Tang Chen curled his lips, not satisfied with this answer. "Brother Qian, what do you think?" Tang Xiao looked at Qian Renxue and Poseidon floating in the air in the south. Qian Renxue pondered for a moment, his face solemn, and slowly said, "Brother Tang, this Valkyrie is very strange. She is not in the category of God, but the energy contained in her body seems to be above me." "You mean?" Tang Chen narrowed his eyes. "Brother Tang, you may lose." Qian Renxue nodded. Tang Chen showed disdain on his face, and just as he was about to speak, there was a sudden explosion in the air. Boom. I saw a piece of a ocean hammer that occupied a large area of the sky in everyone's sight, slamming into the giant snake phantom. The two huge monsters collided, and the energy aftermath burst out everywhere. It seemed that countless cracks appeared in the air. Then a wave spread downwards. An energy storm blew. Voila, the building of a ocean sect shook. The soul masters with weaker soul power were overturned by the energy, and their faces turned pale. Tang Chen and other strongmen released their soul power to resist the aftermath of the energy that poured in. Tang Chen's face changed. The power displayed by Kai Lin definitely reached the strength before he entered the killing city. Qian Renxue frowned slightly, looked at Poseidon, and said, "This female warrior is too strange." Poseidon looked at Kai Lin slowly descending in the air and nodded gently, "That's right." Speaking of which, Poseidon had also heard about the goddess list that was popular in the mainland recently. She didn't have much idea about her ranking, but was just curious about Kai Lin, the first beauty. Now it seems that it's no wonder that the other party can be ranked first. Seeing this, Qian Renxue muttered in his heart, "Why does Poseidon pay so much attention to the female warrior? Is she concerned about that ranking? The boss's strength is undisputedly the strongest. But the aesthetics are obviously not good. The first place should obviously be Poseidon." At this time, Tang Xiao fell, his martial soul was shattered, and his soul ring exploded. He looked like a bloody man, miserable. Tang Chen caught him and poured him a bottle of eternal life wine. As soon as the wine went into his mouth, Tang Xiao's injuries recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Everyone was jealous. This is the powerful effect of fine wine. Even if there is only one breath left, as long as you drink this fine wine, you will be alive and kicking immediately. Kai Lin stared at Tang Xiao, paying attention to his recovery process, and nodded secretly. This is a magical wine that she cannot ignore. Speaking of which, she also learned about several kinds of fine wine from Zhu Ben. But she never asked Liu Chang'an for them. "Zhu Ben, I will give you 3 bottles as a reward," Kai Lin said directly. Zhu Ben waved his hand quickly, with a warm face, and said, "Queen, you don't have to be like this. Serving you was my greatest reward." Kai Lin's eyes flashed with a gleam of light. She knew that Zhu Ben was the prince of the only 2 powerful empires on this continent. With his support, her people would be more stable. "I always believe in fair cooperation. After I defeat this Tang Chen, we can talk about your business." Kai Lin walked towards Tang Chen again, looking up slightly. "Now, it's time for us to fight, right?" Tang Chen nodded slightly, "Okay. But I don't know how to control my strength, so you should always have the everlasting life wine ready. Don't let me kill you with one hammer, or you might be blamed by the Soul Master world. You're good at talking." Kai Lin sneered. Tang Chen was stunned for a moment, and looked at Kai Lin deeply. The next second, a blood-red giant sword fell into his hand. "Let's fight." Chapter 180 Meadows Tang Chen. Chapter 180 Meadows versus Tang Chen in the tavern. Looking at the beautiful and cool Queen Meadows on the screen, more men rebelled. After all, men are fickle. So beautiful. So beautiful. From now on, I am Queen Meadows' dog. Wife, wife, wife. Don't get mad here. With your bear-like appearance, you are worthy of calling the queen your wife. Fuck. Is this a personal attack? ... A group of people were noisy. Zhu Zhuqing stood beside Liu Chang'an and secretly observed his profile. Liu Chang'an's expression had not changed, and there was no greed in his eyes. Seeing this, Zhu Zhuqing felt a little relieved. She didn't know if she could surpass Queen Meadows in the future, but at least now, she was far inferior. Boss, what's the situation with Queen Meadows? Why is she so strong? Zhu Zhuqing asked curiously. Liu Chang'an turned to look at her and explained with a smile. Because she is from another world. You should remember the door I took out after Yan's martial spirit evolved. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. When Liu Chang'an spoke, everyone kept silent and listened to him quietly. Everyone was shocked to learn that Queen Meadows came from another world. It turns out that I heard it right. The voice at the time was Queen Meadows. No wonder the queen has always called herself the king, because she is not from our world at all. Queen Meadows is so strong, it seems that she should be the strongest in that world. I can sacrifice myself and marry Queen Meadows for the peace of the two worlds. Go to hell. Is it your turn? ... The tavern was bustling. The discussion caused by the most beautiful Queen Meadows was not just in the tavern, but almost everyone in the Asian sect was talking about it. Queen Meadows is too topical. Now, Queen Meadows and Tang Chen are competing in the sky, and they are about to leave this planet. They are below and can only vaguely see two small dots, with light flashing from time to time. Without being able to see the battlefield, they could only guess. Bibi Dong said in a deep voice. The Valkyrie is very powerful, definitely not inferior to Tang Chen. Although Tang Chen is a veteran level 99 titled Luo, he is not a god after all. The faces of the people in the spirit hall were stern. Ling Yuan Luo said, I don't know what her purpose is in challenging people everywhere. If she defeats Tang Chen, will she challenge the great priest? Bibi Dong shook her head. How could she know clearly? Challenge me. With the power she has shown now, she should have little chance of winning against me. Qian Renxue narrowed his eyes and judged the strength of both sides. Although he was only a servant of God, when he first became a god, no matter what level of god he was, the change in strength was almost the same. Poseidon suddenly said, Brother Qian, don't underestimate that Valkyrie. She should still have a killer move. Killer move? What killer move? Qian Renxue asked curiously. Poseidon shook his head and said, I don't know either. But I inherited the sea god position, and I can vaguely sense that there is a breath in her body that makes me tired. Even, there is a little fear. Poseidon seriously flashed a thoughtful look. Qian Renxue was shocked. Poseidon, who has become a god, would be afraid of something. Boom. They were about to leave the atmosphere of Douluo Planet. This was a cold and empty place. The strong gale, extremely low temperature, and superb radiation destroyed the environment here. Except for the two of them, there was no other living creature. Tang Chen held the sure divine sword in his left hand and the blood-red Asian hammer in his right hand. His tall and majestic body, the clothes on his upper body were torn, revealing pieces of lumpy muscles and blood flowing. On the other side, 300 meters away, Kailin, who was surrounded by more than a dozen huge red snakes, was better, but also very embarrassed. Kailin covered her chest, panting violently, and her eyes turned into vertical pupils. She stared at Tang Chen, and the phantoms of the red snakes around her also became agitated, trying to break free and attack Tang Chen. The two fought for more than 100 rounds, and she had the upper hand, but it was not good. Whether it was the explosive ring of the clear sky hammer or the sharp azure sword, if they touched her, she would be injured. The azure sword cut a deep cut under her chest. Ha ha ha. It feels so good. I haven't fought so well in a long time. Girl, I should have used 80% of my strength now. You used all your strength, right? Tang Chen was like a devil crawling out of hell, still heroic. Kailin glanced at him lightly and said, 70%, or 60%. ... I will kill you. Tang Chen was furious. Kailin, this girl, was obviously making fun of him. Big sumo hammer. Tang Chen shouted, and the clear sky hammer in his hand suddenly expanded, with blood-red lightning attached to the outer surface. As the clear sky hammer expanded, the light of the whole world seemed to be condensed over it. Kailin took a deep breath. Rise. More than a dozen giant snakes immediately merged into one, turning into a huge monster hundreds of meters long. Someone is coming down. Who is that person? Do we need to think about it? The winner must be Ancestor Tang Chen. So calm and composed, it's obvious that he won. It must be Ancestor Tang Chen. Ha ha ha, our Eotian sect is powerful, no other sect can compare. The disciples of Eotian sect were proud. Their ancestor Tang Chen landed from the air without any injury and calmly. It's obvious that he won. Qian Renxue and Poseidon looked at each other, puzzled. After a few seconds, Tang Chen and Kailin both landed. Tang Chen's clothes were torn and his breath was condensed. He didn't look like he had just fought a battle. Kailin's clothes were not completely destroyed, and the edges and corners were broken, revealing more white skin, stained with blood, exuding a more seductive temptation. Congratulations, Ancestor. Tang Xiao and other disciples of Eotian sect immediately stepped forward to congratulate. Tang Chen glared at them coldly and said unhappily, Congratulations. I lost, I'm no match for this little girl. The smiles of Tang Xiao and others froze on their faces. They looked at Kailin as if they had seen a ghost. After Kailin took a breath on the spot for a while, she walked towards the Wooden Hall again. Zhu Beng secretly clenched his fists. That's it. The more invincible Kailin is, the easier it is for him to complete the task when he borrows the force. I heard that your Wooden Hall is the strongest. Since you are here, if there are any strong people, please come out and teach me. Kailin said lightly. She didn't drink the wine, and her breath was still very weak. Kailin's attitude of not caring about the severity of the matter made everyone in the Wooden Hall embarrassed. They also experienced the feeling that other sects had suffered before. I'm the chief worshipper of the Wooden Hall. Come and learn from the girl's high skills. Qian Renxue landed, wearing a golden armor, attracting countless eyes. Kailin was about to nod, and Bibi Dong said, Why do you need the chief worshipper to take action? I will try it now. Chapter 181 Goddess Fighting. Bibi Dong is going to fight the Valkyria. The top two goddesses on the goddess list are going to have a showdown. This time, many curious people stared with wide eyes, afraid of missing two stunning fights. Speaking of which, they are having a feast for their eyes. Because of Kailin's mountain climbing challenge, there are now 4 goddesses on the list gathered in the Eotian sect. Queen Medusa, Bibi Dong, Poseidon, Tang Yui and Biji are all mature beauties. Just looking at them is enough to make them excited. What's more, now the goddesses are going to fight each other, how can they not be excited? In the tavern, everyone who saw this scene was also excited. Who do you think will win between the Pope and the Valkyria? Do you even need to think about it? The Valkyria even defeated Tang Chen, how could the Pope be her opponent? Not necessarily. Did the Pope take the initiative to meet the enemy just to give his face to others? The Pope must have her confidence. Are you stupid? The Pope is only a level 98 Soul Master. I don't know if he has a legacy. Even if he does, Tang Chen is very good, but he's still lost. Hearing that everyone was arguing, Liu Chang'an thought for a while and said, How about this? I'll open a handicap, you can place a bet, and the winnings will be returned according to the situation. Liu Chang'an's proposal immediately attracted everyone's response. Liu Chang'an asked the maids to appease everyone. One by one, they were all geniuses. Some bet all their money, some suppressed the challenge opportunity of the worldly wine, and some even suppressed a certain ability of their own. There were all kinds of things, they burst into great enthusiasm. In general, there were more people betting on Kailin. The least was a tie between 2 people. I'll put all my capital on the line. Xiao Wu shouted. Now that Shriek Academy is in name only, they simply became day students, wandering around and giving classes at any time. By chance, they came to the tavern again. Bibi Dong took the initiative to ask for a fight, and Kailin had no objection. She shouted, Tavern owner. You said you would compensate me, give it to me now. Kailin's words puzzled everyone. In fact, Kailin wanted to go further. She is now a top-level demon emperor, and her potential has almost reached its limit. And if she refines the Azure Lotus Earth Core Fire, she will have a high probability of evolving and reaching the realm of Dozone at the same time. But this process is not easy, yes. A voice sounded. Then, a beam of light suddenly shot down from the sky and landed on Kailin's body. Kailin's face changed, and a ball of green flame flew out from her brow, then broke up and turned into stars, drifting around his body and blending into it. The beam of light surrounded her and also prevented her breath from being exposed. No one could detect what kind of change had happened to her. Seeing her happy expression, they could guess that something good must have happened to her. The beam disappeared, and Kailin opened her eyes. Her injuries were all healed, and she no longer exuded the coldness that kept strangers away, but a warm feeling. Everyone around her wanted to get close to her. The difference was that before, almost all of them were men, but now women also had this idea. Kailin's body must be very warm. That thing has merged with her. Poseidon nodded slightly. Qian daily raised his eyebrows. In other words, her current strength has reached a higher level. It seems that I may not be able to defeat her. Let's wait and see. Poseidon said. At this time, Kailin and Bibi Dong ascended into the air. When they ascended to high altitude again, the people were different. During the ascent, Bibi Dong's soul power condensed, and the 99th level soul power seemed to have undergone a transformation. However, even if her martial soul became stronger and reached the 99th level, she could not surpass Tang Shen. Kailin stared at her and said calmly, I don't understand why you want to challenge me. Your strength is not as good as that Tang Shen. Bibi Dong was not annoyed when she heard this, and asked, you are not from our world, right? Kailin did not answer, but looked at her calmly. Do you know the boss? His name is Liu Chang'an. Bibi Dong continued to ask. Kailin frowned and said, are you here to fight or to inquire about these boring gossips? I don't know the tavern owner. Bibi Dong nodded slightly, and a flash of understanding flashed in her eyes. It seems that the boss is not lustful and brought this most beautiful woman in his eyes to the Douluo world. Bibi Dong was very happy with this discovery. She will stay in the Douluo world for many, many years, and her mentality also indicates that she will not be able to keep loneliness. She can abstain from sex for 100 years, but she dare not guarantee herself after that. When her love is stirred again, she will definitely choose a man, and Liu Chang'an is naturally her first choice. Therefore, she will use this 100 years to observe Liu Chang'an and see if it is worth pursuing him. This is what she is thinking now. If you don't want to fight, forget it. Kailin said lightly. Let's have a fight. Besides, it's not just me fighting you, there is a god, the Rakshasa god of our world, who wants to borrow my body to fight you. Is that okay? Bibi Dong suddenly said. Whatever, Kailin said indifferently. It seems that the Pope is very concerned about the boss's affairs. Isn't it obvious? The Pope likes the boss, and which woman doesn't like the boss? I just want to know who will win. In the tavern, everyone watched the battle between the two beauties on the light curtain nervously. Bibi Dong's goddess of light butterfly and Kailin's giant red snake are both very gorgeous, and the light effect is very beautiful. Boss, who do you think will win? Zhu Zhuqing, who has the same hairstyle and clothes as Zhu Zhuqing, stood on the other side of Liu Chang'an and asked curiously. Zhu Zhuqing glared at her sister, it was too embarrassing for her. Isn't this Batwoman dressed like herself just to please her in bed? Liu Chang'an shook his head slightly, it's unspeakable. However, you can look forward to the coming of the Rakshasa god and the battle between him and Queen Medusa. Moreover, I wonder what her purpose is. Liu Chang'an pondered. His tavern will definitely attract the attention of the god realm. Especially when the sea god came later, he didn't get any good results in the tavern. It would be strange if the god realm didn't respond to this. One day in the god realm is 1 year in the lower world. This time is enough for them to think about countermeasures. If you come with good intentions, Liu Chang'an welcomes you. No matter what your identity is, as long as you follow the rules of the tavern, you were a guest. But if you come with malice, Liu Chang'an in the tavern is enough to suppress the gods. At this time, in the Aoshan sect, a girl with printed hair suddenly appeared in the team of fierce beasts. As soon as she appeared, she attracted everyone's attention. This turned out to be a woman whose appearance was not inferior to Queen Medusa, Bibi Dong and Bosexit. When she appeared, many people had an idea in their minds. The boss's goddess list will lose its credibility. Chapter 182 Giluena. The beauty of the Silver Dragon King Giluena is extraordinary. She is wearing a silver skirt, silver hair, and a weak and pale face. She has a dreamy beauty, as if a breath would blow her away. So everyone present did not dare to breathe heavily. They were afraid of driving this beauty away. Someone thought to himself, can the bosses know? One beauty in the world really suppressed this silver-haired girl. The next second, The beasts around Gilliuena blocked everyone's view. A sigh sounded. Gilliuena looked at the sky and said faintly, "The Rakshasa god is coming." "God. My lord, should we avoid the edge for a while?" Daitian's expression changed. Although he has recovered his peak strength, he is only a first-level god. If the gods want to punish them, they can't stop them. They can't protect Gilliuena either. Gilliuena shook her head and said, "No need. Nuasha God has always been at odds with the God Realm Committee, and I can't hide. When I left the Star Dou Great Forest, I was watched." Daitian's face showed annoyance. "It's all my fault. He became the beast god, and he must have been watched by the God Realm Committee. His every move was under their eyes. Naturally, he thought he was very secretive when he met Gilliuena, but in fact he was still discovered. Wait for Nuasha God to come down, and then we'll ask. At worst, I can hide in the tavern. Didn't the guy say that no one is allowed to cause trouble in the tavern? Let's see if he dares to take this responsibility." Gilliuena smiled. In the sky, Bibi Dong gave up after a few moves, and Nuasha God took control of her body, but he could only exert the soul power of the peak of level 99, and it was difficult to break through the limit of the god level. Nuasha God came, thinking that he could easily subdue Kailin. Actually, bang, 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 Kailin and Nuasha God first fought with fists and feet, and then used weapons. They fought for thousands of rounds at a high speed, and it was over in just a few breaths. To outsiders, the two sides separated at the first touch. The red wings behind Kailin became brighter, and her legs turned into a snake tail. "Are you the so-called god in this world?" Kailin asked in confusion. If all gods are at this level, then she would be very disappointed. She has achieved ozone level, and it is easy for her to beat 10 gods of this level. Nuasha God looked at Kailin in surprise, and she said, "You are very strange. Obviously you have no divinity, let alone a god position, but your strength has completely broken through the limit of level 99. It seems that your plane is not simple. No wonder the God Realm Committee pays special attention to you." Nuasha God looked up and down at Kailin. Although she is not at her peak strength now, her consciousness is not bad, but she still can't take Kailin. This means that if it is a battle of the same level, she may not be able to win. The fighting skills revealed by Kailin far surpass those of the Blue Plane. "Before the God Realm turns against you, how about we make a deal?" Nuasha God asked with a smile. "Deal?" Kailin frowned. She did feel like she was being watched. She had previously suspected that it was the tavern owner, but now that Nuasha God said this, she realized that the danger came from the so-called God Realm Committee. Yes, as a visitor from another world, she wanted to invade the Douluo world. Would the gods of this plane allow her to do so? Yes, a deal. There shouldn't be gods in your plane, right? I can protect you, and the price you have to pay is just to bring me to your plane. Nuasha God smiled. Kailin stared at her for a long time, and suddenly smiled. Okay. The gods of this world may have a high level of life, but in terms of strength, they will never be the opponents of the strong men of the Douluo Continent. Although she is the king in a remote place. But if she goes to places like Zhongzhou where strong men gather, she will be just a cannon fodder. This so-called god thought he could get away with it in Douluo Continent, but he will probably be eaten without leaving any skin. Nuasha God nodded slightly. Very good. Your power has exceeded the peak of Douluo Continent. If you want a challenge, you can only challenge living beings. However, the God Realm Committee stipulates that the God Realm cannot interfere with the mortal world. If you can pass the test of the God Realm Committee, this Douluo Continent will be your back garden in the future. Nuasha God smiled and started to land. Kailin raised her eyebrows slightly. Back garden? What about the tavern? She didn't tell the situation in the other world and landed with them. Watching the two goddesses descend from the sky. Many men raised their heads and looked under their skirts in a lewd way, but they could only see a ball of black light on the ground, which was tighter than mosaics. Who won? Someone asked in a low voice. The two women ignored them. Kailin turned her eyes and looked at Qian Renxue, both sexes, Daitian and Gilliuena in turn. She still has the trump card of the fire that has not been used yet, which should be enough to deal with Qian Renxue, but it is unknown whether both sexes will win or lose, and there is no chance of winning against Daitian. As for the others, she did not pay attention. After listening to Nuasha God's description, she now has an understanding of the strong people in this world. Vulnerable. Kailin's eyes turned and finally fell on Gilliuena, who was as beautiful as herself. This silver-haired woman gave her the most special feeling. Obviously, the power contained in her body was not strong, and she even seemed to be seriously injured, but the breath she exuded made her palpitate. Want to challenge me? Gillian asked with a smile. Kylin's pupils shrank. In her eyes, the other party's smiling face was more like the roar of a dragon. Okay, Silver Dragon King, don't scare this guest. Nuoya God said with a smile. Nuoya God, after so many years, you seem to have become much more rational. Gillian said lightly. Everyone widened their eyes when they heard the words, and looked at the Nuoya God in amazement. It was clearly Bibi Dong's body, so why was this silver-haired woman calling her Rakshasa? And this woman was, the Silver Dragon King? Of course, after being oppressed by the Shirogod for so many years, it's time to face reality and be more open-minded. Let's not talk about it anymore, let's talk about you. The Rakshasa God smiled and said, you were about to face a disaster. Gillian chuckled and said, the God realm is going to come down to deal with me. Almost. After all, you are the split of the Dragon God. You have the strength of the God King. Although you are seriously injured now, you will recover one day, especially here there is a magical tavern. So? Gillian raised her eyebrows. So, the God Realm Committee decided to bring you to the God Realm. If you have any evil intentions towards the God Realm and Douluo Continent, we will cut off your dragon head. If not, we will just imprison you. The Rakshasa God gestured with his neb to scare Gillian. Gillian remained calm, but her heart tightened. She really had no ability to change the situation. By the way, let's let the boss come in and have a chat too, and the God Realm Committee's descent to the mortal world has a lot to do with him as well, Rakshasa God said with a smile. Chapter 183 News from the Divine Realm. There was silence in the tavern. Almost all the people who had bet on the chances of Bibi Dong and Kylin winning were silent. No one expected that the two women would actually tie, and neither Bibi Dong herself nor the possessed Rakshasa God could decide the winner. The two sides just stopped challenging after realizing the gap between them. In this way, more than 90% of the gamblers in the tavern lost everything. That's all my fortune. If I lose this time, I'll be a pauper. Goddess Kylin, why don't you continue to fight? It's over, ha ha ha. Although we lost, you didn't win either. Who would have believed that they would stop there? The tavern was in a mess. Xiao Wu covered his face, feeling extremely annoyed. He said he bet his entire fortune, but he didn't give a price, and he didn't know if the boss would find out. If he did, would he forget about it? It seems that the bet is over. So, I'm going to collect all the bets from the losers. Liu Chang'an smiled slightly and waved his hand, and it seemed that nothing changed. Ah. I. A panicked voice sounded. Everyone looked over and saw that all of Xiao Wu's clothes were taken away. Only the key parts were mosaiced. All his wealth was lost. This guy thought he was being clever and could avoid punishment. In fact, he could not escape the means of omniscience and omnipotence. Ermin laughed, grabbed Xiao Wu's arm, and dragged him out. People who are disheveled are not allowed to act like hooligans in the tavern. Others exclaimed. My wallet is gone. My big gold teeth are gone. I was just joking at the time, how could it be taken away? It's over, my manliness. A group of people began to complain. When they were betting, they made many outrageous bets for fun. As a result, no one expected that Liu Chang'an was serious with them. Whatever bet you made, it will be taken away now. This time, many people wailed. But some people were complacent. I bet on the 70 kilograms of fat on my body. Now the meat is gone, but the skin has not tightened yet, and it's a bit scary to hand down, but this is easy to solve. I bet on my painful memories, and now I have forgotten all the sad things, ha ha ha. Dai Shishi came close to Liu Chang'an, her little face pink, her breath as sweet as orchid. Boss, I lost myself to you, Liu Chang'an was numb. These guys are really geniuses. At this time, the voice of Luoxia God sounded, attracting Liu Chang'an's attention. Others also cast their eyes over. Regarding the things involving the God Realm, they rarely even recorded them before, but now they can witness it with their own eyes. By the way, let the boss talk to, the God Realm Committee's coming down to the world has a lot to do with him. Luoxia God's voice had just fallen. Liu Chang'an's consciousness projected over, you are looking for me. Yes, boss, I have actually been paying attention to you for a long time. I have learned about you from Bibi Dong. Your great power is something that even I cannot understand. Emerald Dragon King, what kind of experience have you had? Luoxia God looked confident, as if he was imagining Liu Chang'an's shocked face. Liu Chang'an was silent for a while. He was speechless. Emerald Dragon King? What is this? Why is he called Emerald Dragon King? Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Everyone present was shocked and looked at each other. It turned out that the boss was actually a Dragon King. This is very important news. Gillian chuckled and said secretly, "You think you can hide away, but can you really do it? Your blood determines that you can't live in comfort. See what you choose." Daitian looked excited. With Uncle Emerald Dragon King fighting side by side, he was not afraid even if he was against the gods. "What nonsense are you talking about? I'm not the Emerald Dragon King," Liu Chang'an denied. Liu Chang'an smiled and said, "Okay, it doesn't matter if you say that. I won't argue with you. But the God Realm Committee has already determined that you are the Emerald Dragon King. Based on this, they are planning how to deal with you. When the time comes, they will bring all the beast gods of Douluo Continent to the God Realm. And you, the God of Space, will fight you again. Back then, the God of Space defeated you and you were defeated. Everyone thought you were dead, but they didn't expect you." Liu Chang'an talked freely. At this moment, her mouth suddenly closed and she couldn't make any sound. "I'm not the Emerald Dragon King. I will punish you lightly. If you do it again, I will never forgive you." Liu Chang'an's voice sounded, and the next moment, a whip of light suddenly appeared in Liu Chang'an's depth and hit her front body. Snap! The whip hit Liu Chang'an's body, and the ground shook. She fell flat on her back. The beauty was embarrassed, and people blushed. Liu Chang'an had not suffered such harm for tens of thousands of years. She opened her lips and uttered an "ah." Immediately, many people who were paying attention to her blushed. How could this female pope make such a sound? She really deserves to be taught a lesson. Unfortunately, no one has the courage. Liu Chang'an regained her ability to speak. She looked around in shame and anger, and her divine power was stimulated. She roared, "Fei, how dare you insult me like this? Wait for Chang'an to come and see how you deal with it." Liu Chang'an did not respond. Bibi Dong regained her consciousness and blushed when she thought of Liu Chang'an's embarrassing moan just now. She retreated to the center of the Wooden Hall and used their bodies to cover her embarrassment. Everyone was no longer in the mood to look at Bibi Dong. They were all confused. Was the boss the Emerald Dragon King? From the bottom of their hearts, they hoped that Liu Chang'an was a human who became a god, so that he would be closer to them, even though Liu Chang'an had said that he would not interfere in the secular world. Moreover, in their cognition, Liu Chang'an was invincible. Now the Rakshasa god suddenly unveiled Liu Chang'an's face. He was not a human, but a Dragon King, who had been defeated by the God of Space before. The boss's mysterious and invincible image was instantly shattered. Gillian said loudly, "Emerald Dragon King, you should recognize me, right? Do you have to be punished like the Rakshasa god to change your cognition?" Liu Chang'an's indifferent voice sounded. Gillian's beautiful little face changed for a while, and a flash of anger flashed in her eyes. This pretentious Emerald Dragon King really pissed her off. The God Realm Committee has discovered the truth, but instead of wanting to fight the enemy with him, he threatened him. "Boss, I want to ask you," Kailin asked loudly. "If you have anything to do, come to the tavern to find me. The wines you deserve will also be redeemed in the tavern. Also, the rules of the tavern have not changed, and no matter whether you're a human or a god, you must not violate them." Liu Chang'an's voice was as magnanimous as the sea, resounding through the mortal world and the God Realm. Chapter 184 The Coming of the Gods in the Divine World. In the middle of a magnificent palace square, several figures were standing in a circle. The circle emitted a brilliant light, hiding their faces. It was vaguely visible that a green figure and a grey-red figure were in the middle, surrounded by 7 or 8 figures. They stood here, and the light between heaven and earth gathered. They were the focus of the world. "I have watched the tavern from afar," the grey-red figure spoke. His voice was indifferent, like an executioner who regarded the lives of the people in the world as worthless. "How is it? With your strength, you should be able to see through it, right?" The playful voice of the sea god sounded. The Shire god glanced at him coldly and said, "I can't see through it. I can't see through it at all. In my perception, it is an ordinary tavern that can't be more ordinary." The gods were silent when they heard this. In the divine world, the highest combat power is the Shire god. If they go to a tavern that even the Shire god can't see through, they may not be able to get anything good. Moreover, this time they are coming in their true bodies. Once fallen, there is no resurrection. The goddess of life smiled and said, "Maybe we can talk. It doesn't have to be a life and death struggle. As long as we are sure that the boss has no ambitions for the God Realm, how is that possible? Those beast gods are always thinking about how to take back the God Realm. The tavern owner is the Emerald Dragon King. This possibility is very high. Apart from this person, it is difficult for us to understand such a situation. So, we must. God Shura spoke loudly. He is a complete advocate of war. The god of the sea patted his shoulder and laughed. Shura, don't be alarmist here. I have seen that, boss. Even the Emerald Dragon King has changed his mind. God Shura said lightly, you guys, you feel relaxed after inheriting the throne of God. That's right. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to the tavern owner. This time, I will explore the way first. You go to verify the news. If it is true, the god of the sea was silent. At this time, the blue light emitted by the ring had risen to about 3 meters, completely covering the figures of the gods. Swoosh, a flash of blue light, and the gods disappeared in an instant. Boom, 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 several thunders suddenly sounded in every corner of Douluo Star. Giuliana ran to the door of the tavern, looked at the sky, and murmured, "They are coming quite fast. It seems that we have to speed up." "Yes." Daitian responded respectfully, with no fear in his eyes, only expectation. Giuliana led a group of fierce beasts into the tavern. There were many people in the tavern, almost to the edge of being full. They came in, but they couldn't even get a seat. Giuliana glanced around, and her extraordinary face attracted countless pairs of fiery eyes. "Go find him." Giuliana went straight to the direction of Liu Chang'an. She was so beautiful, and she took the initiative to find Liu Chang'an. Seeing this, the guests in front did not dare to stop her, and they spread out to both sides to form a path for Giuliana. Looking at Giuliana coming slowly, Liu Chang'an was slightly surprised. This girl was really beautiful to the extreme. The reason why he didn't put Giuliana in the goddess list was purely because he forgot. That's right, when he cast his sights on the Star Dou Great Forest, Giuliana happened to be in the form of the Silver Dragon King. So he didn't include her in the list. Emerald, Giuliana opened her mouth, but was forced back by Liu Chang'an's dangerous eyes. She took a deep breath and swallowed the 2 words Dragon King that followed. "Boss, I came here to tell you that the gods have come. And there are at least 2 god kings. If we don't unite, I'm afraid there will only be defeat." Giuliana's face was solemn. If the enemy was not coming fiercely and too powerful, she would not want to come here to beg for an alliance. Liu Chang'an glanced at her lightly. "Yeah." After perfunctorily, Liu Chang'an's eyes swept to other parts of the tavern. Because the gods wanted to settle accounts with the tavern, there were unprecedentedly many customers now. They were all worried that Liu Chang'an would be taken away by the gods and the tavern would no longer be open. So more and more people challenged the earthly wine, and then got drunk directly. In one morning, more than 3,000 people were drunk. And this number is still increasing rapidly. Giuliana frowned and looked at Liu Chang'an unhappily. At this time, he was still hiding. It seems that he really doesn't want to put himself in the beast god. I guess he will run away when the god king comes. "Boss, then you can heal my injuries for me, right? For the sake of our friendship, help me once." Giuliana sighed and looked at Liu Chang'an with burning eyes. Liu Chang'an raised his eyebrows slightly, with a puzzled expression. "Friendship? How many times have he and Giuliana met? How did they get involved in friendship?" Giuliana continued, "If I don't recover, I can only burst out the strength of a first-level god at most. Not to mention defeating them, I'm afraid I can't even escape." Liu Chang'an said, "Oh," and nodded, "Yes, the goddess of life, the god of Shura, the god of the sea, and the god of elements who have descended now all start with the strength of the first level. You can't defeat them. You." Giuliana glared at Liu Chang'an angrily. This person seemed to be really angry with her. Of course, she knew that she was not an opponent, so she came here for help. Liu Chang'an added, "Of course, if you don't leave the tavern, no one can interfere with your personal freedom. This is the rule of the tavern. And if you want to recover from your injuries, I'm afraid that the wine is not enough. You can only challenge the worldly wine." Giuliana bit her lower lip, and a touch of resentment appeared on her face. Liu Chang'an didn't take himself seriously. After all, they are all dragon gods. Why did they go their separate ways and pretend not to know each other? "Okay, I want to challenge." Giuliana gritted her teeth and said, breaking a bit of the beauty of a virgin. After collecting the 3 gold soul coins given by Daitian, Liu Chang'an gave Giuliana 3 bowls of earthly wine. Although 3 bowls of earthly wine were placed in front of her, Giuliana did not drink them immediately. She also has the burden of being an idol. After all, she is the Silver Dragon King, the leader of soul beasts. If the challenge fails, or if she gets drunk, wouldn't she be embarrassed? The fierce beasts looked at Giuliana nervously. If the challenge is successful, everything will be fine. But if it fails, their soul beasts will have to be suppressed by the God realm. They were previously overwhelmed by the heavenly tribulation, and now there may be more earth tribulations, human tribulations, and so on. More than half of the people in the tavern were watching this scene. Now the tavern is facing a crisis, and no one is sure that the boss can defeat the God Realm Committee, which sounds scary. At this moment, a hearty laugh came in. "Boss, do you welcome me, a bad guest?" Chapter 185 The Story of Poseidon. The hearty laughter lasted for more than 10 seconds. A man in blue armor entered. He had appeared in front of everyone before and showed a wave of operations that even a god might have no bottom line. However, no one present dared to despise the sea god. It was more thorough than when Giuliana came in just now. The customers who blocked the way hurriedly dispersed, and did not even dare to look at the sea god. This is a real god walking among people. In fact, his sect once competed with the Spirit Hall. Now that this god has come in person and breathes the same air as everyone, how can they not be excited and awed? The sea god is not serious. Apart from his radiant divinity, he looks more like a dandy like Avalanche. Liu Chang'an glanced at him lightly, and still had no special reaction. Giuliana was on guard, and her divine power was boiling. But now, she is only the combat power of an ordinary first-level god, and she may not even be able to beat the elemental god. The sea god smiled and didn't care. He raised his hand and said, "Relax, Silver Dragon King. I came here alone. I'm not the sea god anymore. I have left the God Realm Committee. You can completely ignore my threats." The sea god explained casually. Giuliana didn't dare to relax. She turned her head to look at Liu Chang'an, wanting to fight the enemy together. But she found that Liu Chang'an had shifted his gaze again, and didn't seem to take them seriously at all. Giuliana slapped her forehead in annoyance. This arrogant bastard is no different from the past. The sea god also showed an awkward smile. He came to visit Liu Chang'an, first to explore the secrets of the tavern, and second to show off. Because they have already grasped the truth that Liu Chang'an is so powerful. Taking a deep breath, the sea god said slowly, "How about I tell you a story?" As the focus of attention, the sea god said so, naturally attracting a lot of attention. But Liu Chang'an still didn't look at him, and seemed to not care about his story at all. Giuliana frowned and stared at the sea god, curious about what tricks he was going to play. Back then, the dragon god led almost all the beast gods to rebel against the god realm. The sea god had just started. Giuliana was dissatisfied and said, "You define that battle as rebellion." The sea god shrugged and said indifferently, "It's just a story, don't take it seriously. If Your Excellency the Silver Dragon King wants it to be meaningful, then I won't tell it." Giuliana glared at him and stopped talking. The sea god chuckled and continued, "The dragon god is crazy. His cultivation went wrong, and it also affected the group of beast gods who followed him. He wants to exterminate all the gods in the god realm who were not of beast origin. The reason is still unknown." When the sea god said this, Giuliana's face became even gloomier, and she obviously did not agree with the sea god's description. Everyone in the tavern listened very seriously, and one by one did not dare to make a sound. Even their breathing slowed down. If it weren't for the heart being out of control, I'm afraid they would have to find ways to slow down their heartbeats. Then, a war that affected the entire god realm broke out. On the dragon god side, the core combat power was the 9 dragon kings and the 9 sons of the dragon god. And what I want to talk about is the Emerald Dragon King among them. The Emerald Dragon King was able to manipulate space skillfully when he was born. The uncrowned god of space. So, the 2 gods who also played with space left the battlefield and went to fight in the turbulence of time and space. In short, the god of space won in the end, and the Emerald Dragon King was lost in the turbulence of time and space. Logically, there shouldn't be even ashes left. The sea god kept everyone in suspense, observing everyone's reactions, especially the corner of his eyes that kept staring at Liu Chang'an. He came to tell this story to verify the speculation of the god realm about the tavern. Now Liu Chang'an said nothing, and his expression did not fluctuate at all. The sea god secretly said, "It's almost certain, our guess is correct." Many people looked at Liu Chang'an. They all heard that the so-called Emerald Dragon King was the boss. The mysterious and powerful boss turned out to be a dragon god, and he was defeated. They were all very disappointed. Emperor's pupils were vertical, staring at the sea god. We were getting closer and closer to the truth. Why was Uncle Emerald Dragon King so strong? Why did Uncle Emerald Dragon King have to remain neutral? The answer was about to be revealed. The sea god showed a smug look, and suddenly said loudly, "But the Emerald Dragon King who was supposed to fall entered a mysterious space, and he got the treasure that caused the Dragon God to go crazy, the origin of the broken world." Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Gillian's breath changed, and her eyes widened. Emperor Qian opened his mouth wide, nodded slightly, and said secretly, "It's true, the others hadn't figured out the situation yet, and didn't understand what it meant." Why did he suddenly get excited? What world origin? Is it really that powerful? Yes, the so-called origin of creation is the starting point for the evolution of all things, and it is also the prototype of the world created by the God of creation. With this source of power, everything can be created, including martial spirits, including soul power, including the throne, including gods. Everything that can be thought of can be evolved from the origin of creation. Liu Chang'an raised his eyebrows. How come this guy is addicted to telling stories? He is so startled. Poseidon looked at Liu Chang'an confidently, with the corner of his mouth raised. "Pretend I have discovered your biggest secret." Poseidon continued. "As for why the Emerald Dragon King can take it out generously, it is because he has absorbed the lessons of the Dragon God. To refine the origin of the world, it is not the power of God, but the control of the law. To challenge the earthly wine, it is actually to let others challenge on his behalf, and then use it to perceive the rules. Mutual benefit. As for why there are rewards and punishments, it is because the power of the origin of creation is absolutely balanced. If there is a positive, there must be a negative to neutralize it." Poseidon's body trembled with excitement, and his eyes seemed to burst out. The origin of creation is a treasure that even the gods want to get. The gods of the sea even inferred that the reason why the dragon god went crazy was this origin of the world. If they can recover this power, perhaps they can open up other worlds. And to prove the truth of what I said is also very simple, as long as I challenge the world wine. Borrowing the power of the main world, I can offset the impact of the origin of the world. The sea god said confidently. He gave 3 gold soul coins and smiled like a victorious general. "Boss, can I challenge?" On the other side, other gods were also exploring the traces of the origin of the world. Soon, Shura God said, "It's okay. There is indeed the power of the origin of the world. Although it is not quite the same as we expected, it is enough to prove that our guess is correct." The goddess of life nodded slightly. "In order to prevent the Emerald Dragon King from going crazy, I think it should be softened. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 186. The slap in the face comes so quickly. Soften. No, we must not have the slightest tendency to condone evil when dealing with a beast god, especially one that has mastered the origin of the world. Shura God said coldly. God is of life said. The Emerald Dragon King is different. Although he is a beast god, he has always been aloof, and now he doesn't even recognize the Silver Dragon King. Then why does he want to control the origin of the world? Moreover, he also created the evil soul beast, endangering the entire Douluo Continent. Are you sure he is not preparing for a counterattack on the god realm in the future? Shura God stared into the eyes of the goddess of life, speaking fiercely. Goddess of life bit her lower lip, shook her head slightly, and said, "But he later also reduced the danger of the evil soul beast. Moreover, the power of the origin of creation, he can already use a little bit, which means that his route is at least not wrong. A beast god who is smarter than the dragon god, if he succeeds, will be a disaster for the entire nerve. Fortunately, we can still borrow the origin of creation in this world to offset the broken Emerald Dragon King. If he completely controls it, no one will be able to subdue him." Shura God's attitude is tough. The goddess of life pursed her lips slightly and said stubbornly, "Then, let's go and block the plan of the Emerald Dragon King first. Then, I hope to persuade him first. If we can avoid a war, it would be the best." The god of Shura nodded lightly and acted separately from the goddess of life. In fact, it was mainly the god of space who was taking action. He first helped the god of Shura to prepare, so that the face and voice of the god of Shura could be seen in the sky all over the continent. The god of Shura spread the message to the world. The Tavern is the Emerald Dragon King. The purpose of the god of Shura was very simple, emphasizing the harmfulness of the Tavern and sending down an oracle that mortals should not go to the Tavern to help the evil. For a time, people all over the continent were shocked. Miracle. Miracle that affected the entire continent. The owner of the tavern turned out to be some emerald dragon king. Not a god of human origin. No wonder he released the evil soul beast before. So that's it. He actually used our power to make profits for himself. It's too much. We can't go to the tavern. Otherwise, it will make the gods angry. All over the continent, there was a heated discussion. Liu Chang'an's previous actions, because of his tyrannical strength, suppressed all disobedience, so people suppressed their depression. But now it's different. The real gods appeared and revealed the conspiracy of the tavern. And the invincible tavern owner in their eyes had also been defeated. Now the gods have come to the door. The tavern is going to close. When the wall falls, everyone pushes it, and they all began to vent their dissatisfaction. A Ocean sect. Tang Chen looked at the image in the air, nodded slightly, and said, I said before that relying on external forces to become a god is ultimately a small path. There is no such thing as a free lunch. There is indeed something wrong with the tavern. Everyone in A Ocean sect looked at each other and did not respond. Ancestor Tang Chen had eaten too much in the tavern. Naturally, he hated the tavern. However, they have all experienced the magic of the tavern and dare not agree with it. Tang Chen said again, the god in the air is the sure god, and it is also that god I inherited. As his inheritor, A Ocean sect naturally has to respond. Ancestor, how to respond? Tang Xiao asked curiously. Tang Chen glanced at him and said dissatisfiedly, do I need to pay for this? Since the sure god has already said that other people are forbidden to go to the tavern, we naturally have to do our part. I'll leave all this to you, and I'll go after the sure god. After giving the order, Tang Chen took the sure sword and soared into the sky. Tang Xiao shook his head helplessly. The decision made by the ancestor on a whim is difficult for them. On the other side, the goddess of life went to the two empires and the spirit hall in turn. The purpose was the same, calling on the strongest forces in the world to prohibit civilians and spirit masters from going to the tavern. The Tiandou Empire responded immediately and was willing to follow the will of the goddess of life. The Xingluo Empire flatly refused. In fact, the patron saint of the Xingluo Empire was once a beast god, who was suppressed by the gods, and naturally had no good feelings towards the goddess of life. The goddess of life was very gentle and did not get angry because of the attitude of the Xingluo Empire. When they arrived at the spirit hall, the goddess of life communicated again. Bibi Dong neither agreed nor refused, but said, we need to think about it. The goddess of life did not pursue the matter and said, okay. After the goddess of life left, disagreements arose in the spirit hall. In the tavern, everyone also heard the declaration of the god of Shura. So they fell into silence. They challenged the earthly wine, but were actually helping the boss to capture a treasure. This is called helping the tyrant. Those who were not of my race must have different hearts. This time, many people had changes in their minds. Immediately, someone walked out without saying a word. Seeing this scene, no one spoke to stop them and asked. Zhu Zhuqing looked at this scene, confused, biting her lips, and looked at Liu Chang'an again. The other women were the same, paying attention to Liu Chang'an's reaction. Liu Chang'an was very calm, neither angry nor making excuses, and his face was still calm. He looked at the god of the sea, who was holding a bowl of earthly wine and looking at Liu Chang'an with a smile. Boss, the origin power of the broken world is very strong, but it is the origin power of another world after all. In our world, it is naturally suppressed. If you don't fully master it, it is impossible to have an impact on us. Liu Chang'an shook his head, you think wrong. Poseidon smiled slightly, with a confident look, pointing at the door of the tavern where more and more people were walking, and said with a smile, it has come to this point, and the boss is still calm and composed. I admire you. Well, let me use practical actions to prove that what I said is true. Poseidon raised his head and drank the first bowl of earthly wine, followed by the second bowl, and the third bowl. He naturally had no issues, but just mobilized the origin power of this world to offset the alcoholic power of the earthly wine. I told you, the confidence on Poseidon's face disappeared, or blurred. He held his head, his eyes were full of stars, and suddenly he burped, and then fell forward. Bang! Poseidon was drunk. Many people in the tavern were paying attention to this scene, and their eyes widened when they saw it. They all believed what Poseidon said, thinking that he was going to break the rules of the earthly wine in one fell swoop. And this is it. He couldn't even last 3 seconds. He performed so badly, and all the things Poseidon said before were not very effective. Gyuwen opened her red lips slightly, looking at Liu Chang'an in astonishment. How could it be? What Poseidon said was very true, and it could perfectly explain why Liu Chang'an was so mysterious. But he couldn't even last the earthly wine. Could he be wrong? Gilliana clenched the wine bowl in her hand, and her face changed. The tavern fell into silence again, and even those who were about to leave the tavern stopped at this time. Chapter 187. Remaining power. The guests in the tavern looked at each other, and no one moved. Ermin clapped his hands and laughed. This idiot said a lot, but this is the result? How shameful. He said a lot of nonsense, but he still fell. He is a god, but he is not as good as me. Deming glared at him, picked up the sea god, and said, "Don't be arrogant, just follow the rules." Ermin smiled foolishly and nodded repeatedly. The tavern is going to be attacked by the gods. They don't care. If the boss is not what the gods said, it means that the boss's power is above the gods. They will naturally not be affected if they follow that boss. If the boss is really the Emerald Dragon King, he is the leader of the soul beasts, and it is only natural for them to follow that boss. Deming and Ermin followed the rules and sent the drunk sea god to the second floor. Everyone woke up as if from a dream, but they were not as enthusiastic as before. Zhu Zhuqing came to Liu Chang'an, held his wrist, stared at Liu Chang'an with her big watery eyes, and said, "No matter what kind of difficulties you face, the gods don't matter, I will stand with you until death." "Me too." Zhu Zhuqing came over and said. Gillian's voice was very low, but very firm, and said, I'm also willing to live and die with the tavern." Liu Chang'an smiled slightly and rubbed Zhu Zhuqing's head. Then Zhu Zhuqing also came over and looked at Liu Chang'an eagerly. Liu Chang'an also rubbed her head with a smile, and glanced at her. Gillian also moved over carefully. Liu Chang'an's mouth twitched slightly. No, why did it seem like a farewell of life and death? In this tavern, let alone the gods come in, even if the god of creation came, he couldn't compare to him. Gilliana said, "Although I don't know how you released the sea god. But what he said should be, forget it, you'll definitely not admit it." "Then, let's talk about how to resist." Liu Chang'an looked at her helplessly. "No need. If you want to restore your strength, or have any wishes, you can get them from the earthly wine. Otherwise, I will not fulfill any of your wishes." Liu Chang'an said unkindly. The beauty was earth-shattering, and it was impossible to shake his mind. Gilliana clenched her fists and stared at Liu Chang'an indignantly. The probability of her successfully challenging the earthly wine made of the power of the origin of creation is not high. After all, she was born because the dragon god failed to grasp the power of the origin of creation. Now Liu Chang'an asked her to challenge this. Isn't it rubbing salt into the wound? Spirit Hall. After the goddess of life left, the Spirit Hall fell into a weird atmosphere. Now the gods have come to judge the tavern. The goddess of life even came to explain the pros and cons in person, hoping that the Spirit Hall can cooperate and block the tavern. Bibi Dong, who had done something before, did not agree immediately. In the hall, other elders were also there, and even the worshippers came. The next decision will be an option that will affect the future of the entire Spirit Hall. Bibi Dong sat high on the stage, with a calm expression, showing no emotion at all, like a god in the clouds, ignoring the secular world. Spirit Kite said first, "If you ask me, we should do nothing. Anyway, no matter which side it is, we can't afford to offend. No matter what the result is, but if you can sell it to the gods, maybe it will have a chance to be favored." Elder Demon Bear said in a deep voice. "The gods of our Spirit Hall have fallen. Without the support of the angel god, if those beast gods attack us in the future, how can we resist?" Ghost Leopard Douluo echoed. "Don't forget, the chief priest has also become a god. And it's not certain whether those beast gods can survive now. If it comes to me, I will do nothing. After all, even if we publicly support the boss will not give us any benefits afterwards." Douluo said lightly. "So, even if we block the tavern, the boss will not kill us because of his kindness. At most, he will give us a small punishment." Ghost Leopard Douluo continued. "Do nothing. Respond to the call of the gods and accept your good fate." The hall was in chaos. The elders had different opinions. Some wanted to support the gods and block the tavern, accounting for half of them, while the rest did not help either side and did not want to support the tavern at all. After all, the tavern's previous attitude to the outside world was obviously a thankless task. "What does the chief priest think?" Bibi Dong suddenly spoke. The hall was suddenly silent. Qian Renxue said slowly, "Just wait and see. The size of our Wuhan hall does not require any risky investment, as long as it can be stable. Bibi Dong nodded slightly, and then said, Wooden Hall does not need to do anything. However, I will go to the tavern as an individual to support the boss with practical actions. Bibi Dong looked determined. For some reason, perhaps it was a woman's intuition, she thought that Liu Chang'an was not as simple as the god said. On the other side, Kailin and Zhu Ben were on their way to the tavern. In the carriage, Kailin stretched out her slender jade fingers, picked up the pastry, put it into her fiery red lips, chewed it gently, and licked her lips with her small tongue. She was so charming. Zhu Ben did not dare to look at her anymore. Every moment was a test for him. Queen, is it too dangerous for us to go to the tavern now? The gods seem to want to threaten you, Zhu Ben asked with a wry smile. Kailin said calmly, whether I can return to my world depends on the tavern. Of course I have to go there. If they think my arrival will harm this place, then send me back. Zhu Ben had a stiff smile on his face, and his heart was even more numb. He originally planned to trick Kailin into targeting Zhu Qinghe, expose Zhu Qinghe's conspiracy, and then shift the contradiction to Kailin. As a result, the god suddenly descended and disrupted his plan. Kailin smiled contemptuously. Didn't she guess Zhu Ben's plan? Tell me, what do you want me to do for you? I will decide whether to help you according to the situation. Just treat it as a reward for you these days. Yes, the queen is really clear-sighted. I can't hide my little calculations from you. Zhu Ben scratched his head and smiled foolishly. You also know that I am the prince of the Qian Dou Empire, and there is another prince of the Qian Dou Empire besides me, Zhu Qinghe, who is my eldest brother. Why? But I suspect he is not my real eldest brother. Zhu Ben did not mention that Zhu Qinghe might be related to the Wooden Hall, but emphasized that the other party was disguised. Kailin nodded gently. If you lie to me, your head will fall off in the first moment. Very good, you're honest, then I will do you this favor, but it will not be free. I will do my best to meet any request you make. Zhu Ben immediately expressed his position. Chapter 188 Persuasion from the Goddess of Life. The camera came to the side of the Goddess of Life. After calling on the three top forces, the Goddess of Life was going to the tavern. She did not choose to teleport directly, but strolled, and the divine light she released along the way healed the bodies and minds of many creatures. With miracles along the way, she came to the official road 30 miles outside the tavern town. Blocked in front of a group of white-robed figures. In front of the white-robed figures was a tall man with bright eyes, like the sea, and he happened to be the overlord of the sea, the deep-sea demon Whale King. Seeing the Goddess of Life appear in front of the road, Shinhai was directly numb. The reason why he did not stay in the tavern town was that he was afraid that the gods and Liu Chang'an would fight and drag himself in. Unexpectedly, he ran away and bumped into a god instead. This woman in a green dress seemed to be emitting vigorous vitality all over her body, and the divine light behind her head, in Shinhai's eyes, almost blinded him. This god is a great existence that is much more powerful than the sea god. Shinhai secretly complained, why did he run into this tough guy? The Goddess of Life smiled at Shinhai, nodded slightly, and said, I know you, the sea god mentioned you. Before he became a god, your rivals. Shinhai's mouth twitched slightly. Well, this time he couldn't get away with it. Yes, I'm the deep-sea demon Whale King. I was punished by the sea god, repented, and later got another opportunity to become a god, but I have become kind, so I have never hurt anyone. Shinhai defended himself and looked at the Goddess of Life nervously. He also saw that the gods came, in addition to targeting the tavern, to make an arrangement for them, the beast gods. According to Shinhai's own understanding, what arrangement is the most convenient to directly wipe out? You are very good, I hope you can continue to maintain it. Don't forget your original intention, and always let it go. The Goddess of Life smiled at him, and then she didn't stay any longer, and continued towards the tavern town. Shinhai was stunned. He didn't kill himself. He didn't even teach himself a lesson. Is it really useful to be a good person? Shinhai grinned and almost laughed out loud. Since that's the case, I can't escape the gaze of the gods, so why should I hide? It's better to go back to the tavern directly, at least I can get the boss's approval. Shinhai slapped his forehead and realized that he had made a wrong decision. Go back. The god worship cult and the tavern will live and die together. Soon, the Goddess of Life appeared in front of the tavern. He looked at the stretched space, nodded slightly, looked at the statue of Liu Chang'an, and smiled again. I feel peace and transcendence here, Emerald Dragon King, no matter what your considerations are, what you are doing now has my approval. The goddess of life is naturally very beautiful, but her beauty is sacred, and mortal eyes cannot take it in. People near the square stared at the goddess of life in a daze. They were infected by the other party's benevolent divinity. Even if they couldn't see the appearance of the goddess of life and didn't know her name and past, they were still deeply touched. At this moment, the customers who left the tavern suddenly had an idea. This should be a god. Although the boss was powerful and aloof, he never showed the urge to make them worship him. You must be the goddess of life. Some people burst into tears, deeply moved by seeing the gods in their lifetime. The goddess of life nodded slightly and said to the tavern, Emerald Dragon King, Silver Dragon King, please come out to see me, or I will come in to see you. It can be seen that there was a commotion at the door of the tavern. Someone was shouting that the gods were coming. After a while, the person who shouted was thrown out by Ming. After waiting for half a minute, there was no response. The goddess of life still had a friendly smile on her face and said, Well, Mr. Boss of the tavern, can you come out to see me? I want to communicate with you its sincerity. When everyone heard that the goddess of life had such a gentle attitude, they were all full of reverence. This goddess, they love her so much. After a while, Liu Chang'an and Bibi Dong left the tavern together. Seeing Liu Chang'an's figure, the goddess of life flashed a hint of doubt in her eyes. Her perception of life forms was very obvious. Liu Chang'an seemed not a real dragon. Although he has the blood of the dragon god, that's all. There is also human divine blood mixed in his body. Even if he must be related to the dragon god, he can only be speculated to be the illegitimate child of the dragon god and a human woman. Among the 9 sons of the dragon god, there is no child born by the dragon god and a human. Liu Chang'an looked at the goddess of life helplessly and said, I am not the Emerald Dragon King. I have emphasized this before. Now, I will tell you again. I hope you can communicate well with your companions. If there is a next time, and in the tavern, I will definitely punish you. The goddess of life was slightly stunned, nodded and smiled, Okay, I understand. Bibi Dong rolled her eyes at Liu Chang'an. This guy is still pretending here. The God King has come to the door, and you are still entangled in the issue of address. Bibi Dong said, Goddess of life, how does the God Realm Committee plan to treat us? The goddess of life smiled and said, It depends on your attitude towards the God Realm. If you can coexist peacefully with the God Realm, there is naturally no need to go to war. This is also what I don't want to see. Is it you who doesn't want to see it, or the God Realm Committee? Bibi Dong sneered. Not to mention the 2 God Kings of kindness and evil, 2 of the remaining 3 members of the God Realm Committee are hardliners. The way they treat the beast god is absolutely one size fits all. The goddess of life pondered for a moment and said seriously, I will try my best to help you fight for it. Bibi Dong smiled. Her smile was like the melting of the remaining snow, revealing the newly blooming flowers and plants, attracting the attention of many people. What is attitude? I hope you two can go to the God Realm with me, so, the goddess of life said softly. Then I can tell you for sure that it is impossible. Bibi Dong flatly refused. As a powerful Dragon King, he should be free to do whatever he wants and unrestrained. How can he be someone else's prisoner? Bibi Dong pushed Liu Chang'an's waist and said unhappily, Don't you know what to say? Liu Chang'an frowned and looked at Bibi Dong, stretched out a finger and pointed it at her neck, shooting a white light, which was the power of extreme cold. Even the body of a god could not withstand it. Ah! Bibi Dong shrank her neck because of the cold. Then he stared at Liu Chang'an with an angry face. This unruly bastard was really vindictive. He just touched his kidney, but he made a fool of himself. Didn't the Silver Dragon King have any face? Liu Chang'an said calmly. I'm already a little annoyed. You think I am the Emerald Dragon King, and I think I have some world origin. And you target my business because of this. Well, I want to explain to you now, Chapter 189 God in God. What you have done has already made me angry. If it weren't for your identity, I would have punished you the moment you arrived. Move your fingers, and you will be doomed forever. But I don't want to commit murder, so I give you an ultimatum. Make a new statement, explain clearly, and come to the tavern to be punished. Liu Chang'an's expression was calm, but the arrogance and contempt in his words moved everyone. Of course, the reason why he has not dealt with Shurigot and others is not because he is magnanimous, but because it is difficult for him to deal with the God King level strongman after leaving the tavern. And when he stays in the tavern, he is fearless. In Liu Chang'an's mouth, it seems that the gods have become small characters that he can easily control. The scene was silent. In the minds of most people, the tavern, which has already gone to waste, dares to deal with the gods in this way. Does the tavern really have such strength and confidence? Or is it just bluffing? Everyone's eyes are strange. Gillian opened her mouth wide and stared at Liu Chang'an blankly. This guy, what is he bragging about? No, oh, forget it. Anyway, with you, I'm sure I can run away. Gillian said helplessly. The employees of the tavern, such as Duming and Ermin, looked at Liu Chang'an's back with admiration. Their boss didn't even care about the gods. After hearing Liu Chang'an's words, the goddess of life sighed slightly. She tried hard to persuade the Shirgod to come to the tavern alone, just to calm down the war. But Liu Chang'an's current attitude is completely uncooperative. The goddess of life looked at Liu Chang'an with regret and said slowly, "In this case, let me verify it. If we are really wrong, we will make up for your loss." The goddess of life raised her hand and pointed it at Liu Chang'an and the tavern. The divine power gathered in her hand, pulling the power of the origin of the world. Mysterious, her position is the closest to the origin of this world, and it is easy to pull it. Suddenly, a green light appeared in the air, falling from the sky, shining on the tavern, as if covering this world with a veil. The people around the tavern looked at the green light scattered on their bodies and turned to Liu Chang'an again. This green light lasted for a long time, but it seemed that this was the only light effect. Nothing changed. The scene became even quieter. Gradually, everyone looked at the goddess of life with surprise and confusion. What was the goddess of life doing after all this time? Why didn't she make a move? The goddess of life was confused now. In their imagination, as long as they mobilized the power of the origin of the world, they could offset all of Liu Chang'an's abilities, and then they could easily control him. Now she has almost used up all the origins that the god can mobilize, but in the end, nothing was achieved. Is it over? Is this your answer to me? Liu Chang'an looked at the goddess of life indifferently. The goddess of life panicked and her face changed drastically. At this moment, she suddenly realized that the other party might not really be the Emerald Dragon King. Without the power of the origin of the world, Liu Chang'an has achieved this state. I am afraid that he has transcended the scope of what the gods can understand. The gods have offended an extremely powerful person without knowing it. Wait, this is all a misunderstanding, the goddess of life hurriedly tried to explain. Liu Chang'an raised his hand without a ripple, and the whole space seemed to be solemn. In the eyes of everyone present, it seemed as if the world had shifted a little. It was more like it was put in the right place. The green light disappeared without a trace. Before everyone could figure out the situation, they suddenly found that the goddess of life was gone. Everyone looked again, and the goddess of life appeared in front of Liu Chang'an. The goddess of life walked slowly into the tavern like a mechanical puppet. Liu Chang'an followed behind her. At this time, the layer of fog blocking the face of the goddess of life also completely disappeared. Everyone could see her true face. She was very beautiful and somewhat similar to Bridget, but now her eyes were full of panic. God, can you be afraid? Everyone fell into silence. Now almost everyone can't figure out the situation. Why can't the goddess of life even hold on for one round? Is the boss really not the Emerald Dragon King? Did the gods make a mistake? In that case, wouldn't those who choose to leave the tavern be embarrassed to death? Yes, these people's faces changed now. Many people blushed, and they were really ashamed. Gillian opened her mouth wide, even showing her gums. At this moment, she completely lost control of her expression. Her face was so extraordinary, but her exaggerated expression showed a hint of funniness. Exclamation mark! Liu Chang'an is not the Emerald Dragon King. Then he must be a stronger person at a higher level, perhaps at the level of the god of creation. She has been misunderstanding him all this time, isn't she courting death? Daitian was also confused, staring blankly at the back of Liu Chang'an who entered the tavern. Did he make a mistake from the beginning? In a carriage traveling through the forest, Kailin just put a candied horse into her mouth, and suddenly froze. The contrasting cuteness almost turned Zhu Ben into a hungry wolf. He pinched himself hard under the table and said, "My queen, what happened to you? The direction of the tavern seems to have changed, but I can't tell clearly. Anyway, there is some change, which makes my heart palpitate." Kailin covered her chest, and the candied horse in her mouth had not been swallowed yet. She didn't know what happened, but there was a great fear in her heart. Then should we go to the tavern? Should the gods punish the tavern? Zhu Ben asked for instructions. Kailin pondered for a moment and said, "Go." The key to whether she can return to the Douluo Continent lies in the tavern. If the tavern owner is punished by the gods like this, she will also ask about the situation. A haze flashed in Zhu Ben's eyes. He and Emperor Zhu had the same idea and didn't think the tavern could be spared. If he went there to join in the fun now, he might get himself into trouble. But in order to hold Kai Ling's trump card, he could only sacrifice his life to accompany the gentleman. Somewhere, Tang Chen finally found a trace of Shurigod, or rather, Shurigod also wanted to meet his successor. The top powerhouse in the mortal world was much more humble when he met Shurigod. God, has my inheritance encountered any bottleneck? Why hasn't it been carried out yet? Tang Chen asked in confusion. Shurigod glanced at him indifferently. When that beast took away your mind, you had already lost the qualification of successor. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Tang Chen's body was shocked, and he looked at Shurigod in astonishment. Is his road to becoming a god going to end here? Shurigod said again, come with me to the tavern. Perhaps witnessing the peak of the battle between gods can touch you and awaken your worn-out potential. Yes. Tang Chen was overjoyed. There is still hope. Shurigod has not given up on him. Compared with this kind of godhood, how can the water-traded person who became a god by the tavern compare with himself? What he inherited is the top fighting power in the world of gods, Shurigod. Chapter 190 Punishment of the Goddess of Life. The tavern was completely silent. Everyone came in, including those who had walked out some time ago. They came in without making any sound. A pair of eyes looked at the space in front of the tavern counter. The Goddess of Life had already walked here. The Goddess of Life, who was suppressed by Liu Chang'an, was like an emotionless puppet. Her expression was dull. She stopped and did not move. She seemed to have forgotten to breathe. A face that was so beautiful that it could overwhelm the whole country, but there was no expression. Liu Chang'an snapped his fingers. Bang! A look suddenly appeared in the eyes of the Goddess of Life. What am I doing? Boss, you are not the Emerald Dragon King. You can't possibly. The Goddess of Life was horrified. When she recalled it, her face immediately showed a look of horror. It's bad, the gods have hit a wall. Liu Chang'an was able to suppress himself in an instant, which meant that his strength had exceeded their understanding. It couldn't be the Emerald Dragon King, and the god's actions were undoubtedly provoking the boss. Then, it seemed reasonable for the boss to punish them. Boss, I am willing to atone, but I hope you can give me a chance to remind my companions so that they can cause less trouble to the tavern, the Goddess of Life said hurriedly. Liu Chang'an said lightly, no need. Boss, the Goddess of Life looked pale. Now, the gods might be in trouble. Instead of worrying about others, you should think about yourself first. Let me think about how to punish you. Liu Chang'an frowned slightly and thought secretly. He was very angry about the god's behavior. Especially with his current hard power, he might really be forced into a mess if he left the tavern. And the other party actually wanted to block the tavern. He clearly told him directly that it was not the Emerald Dragon King, but he was still obsessed. Then Liu Chang'an must punish them. Although the Goddess of Life kindly came to remind her, she called on the two empires and the Spirit Hall, which was considered the second biggest criminal. Boss, can you please not hurt the Goddess of Life? I can feel that she is a truly kind and loving goddess. Bridget suddenly came out and pleaded with Liu Chang'an. Bridget clasped her hands together and looked at Liu Chang'an eagerly. Everyone present was slightly shocked. They didn't expect that someone would dare to stand up and persuade Liu Chang'an. You know, the boss is in a state of anger now. Who dares to risk being implicated? The Goddess of Life looked over and saw Bibi, who had a very similar temperament to her. Her eyes lit up slightly. I don't know what she was thinking. Liu Chang'an said, the death penalty can be avoided, but the living crime cannot be escaped. Biji's face was delighted, and she went further and said, Boss, can you let the Goddess of Life first? Enough, this is not something you can get involved in. Besides, another reason why the gods came to the world is to target you soul beasts. Don't make the mistake of your own camp. Liu Chang'an said indifferently. This silly goose is too kind-hearted. It is not an exaggeration to describe her as a saint. Biji's face changed slightly. She bit her lower lip and felt a little aggrieved. Ziji quickly pulled her back, glared at her fiercely, and said, Abi, what's wrong with you? How can you say good things for the enemy? It would be better if the boss killed all the gods now. Maybe our soul beasts will no longer be troubled by the heavenly tribulation. Ziji said angrily. Biji opened her mouth, sighed faintly, and her eyes were still on the Goddess of Life. Although she became a prisoner of the tavern, the Goddess of Life still maintained the demeanor of the King of Gods. She watched the scene just now quietly. Suddenly, she turned to Liu Chang'an and said sincerely, We took targeted measures against the boss without investigating it clearly. It was our mistake. I hope the boss can give us a chance to make up for it. Of course, I'm willing to accept any punishment given to me by the boss. If you have to kill me, then I hope that I can pass the throne to this girl named Bibi first. The goddess of life looked sincere, and there was no trace of strangeness at all. When the last sentence came out, the whole audience was silent. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, the throne of the goddess of life. At this moment, almost everyone present was moved. At the same time, she was also very annoyed. Why didn't I stand up just now? If it was me, would I have the opportunity to inherit the throne of the goddess of life? This is the position of the God King. Even Gilliwena looked at Bibi with envy. You know, Bibi is a soul beast, not a human form. If Bibi succeeds in becoming the goddess of life, she will be the first real beast god since the fall of the dragon god. At this moment, Gilliwena suddenly looked forward to Liu Chang'an killing the goddess of life. Looking at the pleading eyes of the goddess of life, Liu Chang'an said calmly, "It's up to you. Your punishment is to deprive you of your divine power, banish you to the mortal world, and be a maid in a tavern for 500 years. The goddess of life was stunned for a moment. She was asked to be a maid. This punishment was lighter than she expected. Although she had lost her divine power and could only be called a titled Douluo at the 99th level, with her ability, becoming a god would only take a few days. And 500 years is a long time for mortals. But for the gods, it is just over a year in the god realm. Perhaps the biggest impact is that the goddess of life will completely lose her dignity. From the high and mighty God King, she has become a maid serving guests. I am willing to be punished," the goddess of life said slowly. Liu Chang'an hummed and waved his hand casually. The divinity of the goddess of life disappeared immediately, and her realm instantly fell from the god level to the level of the 99 level titled Douluo. The whole audience was dead silent. From this moment on, the goddess of life will become a maid. There was no gloating in the eyes of the crowd, only infinite emotion. The tavern has always been that mysterious and powerful existence. Gilliwena looked at Liu Chang'an with a complicated expression. Bad news, Liu Chang'an is not the Emerald Dragon King, it is impossible for him to side with her. Good news, the gods have angered Liu Chang'an, and it is estimated that he can't stir up any waves. The news that the goddess of life became a maid in the tavern spread first around the tavern town. At the same time, it spread rapidly outward. Shanghai knew about the time very early. Hearing the news, he slapped his forehead in annoyance. Fuck. I'm embarrassed now. If the boss finds out about my behavior, Shanghai's face changed for a while. Wouldn't his diligent service during this period be considered as having ulterior motives? It must be remedied. Master, what should we do? The boss won't misunderstand us, right? We in the god-worshipping sect will live and die with the boss and the tavern. Saras was also dumbfounded. Who would have thought that the gods came, but in the end they were easily suppressed by the tavern? And these opportunists were really embarrassed. We are not running away, yes, we are not running away, but fighting against foreign enemies. Listen, there are horse hooves over there, bastards. Someone must be trying to block the tavern town. Follow me. Chapter 191 Prologue. Shanghai led a group of believers and ran to the source of the horse hoof sound. 30 miles away, a team of well-equipped knights were galloping towards the tavern town. They were so crowded that the ground was trembling under the trampling of horses' hooves and the dust was flying. Looking around, there must be tens of thousands of knights. This is an extremely elite knight group. Even the two empires could not reserve more than 50,000 people. And now more than 10,000 people have been dispatched. Shanghai clapped his hands and laughed. God's will is mine. Bold lunatic. How dare you run wild outside the tavern town? Do you want to block the tavern business? We, the god worshippers, will not allow you to offend the boss. Shanghai roared, and the blue divine power emitted blue light, surging like the ocean, rushing to the surroundings. Whoosh whoosh, the waves rushed to the surroundings in an instant, blocking the knights. The knights in the front were overturned by the waves, and the knights fell off their horses, screaming one by one. Stop. A roar sounded urgently. Herod. The knights immediately turned their horses around and narrowly avoided the impact of the waves. One of the burly commanders shouted from behind. The Royal Knights of the Tiando Empire. Commander Jiu. Block the tavern town on the orders of Emperor Zhu. Who was ahead? How dare you block the road? Shanghai's eyes lit up. With this villain on the scene, he could feel at ease. He was not running away, he was protecting the tavern business. Saras shouted hurriedly. Say our names. Scare you. We're a cult of worship composed of believers who believe in the tavern owner, and the leader is, ha ha ha, it makes people laugh. Gods are coming. Your tavern is doomed. Maybe after today, there will be no more taverns in the world. You get out of the way, I won't bother with you. Jiuyu's laughter was full of contempt. Shinhegai didn't say anything, nor did he continue to take action. He maintained the blue waves, forming a high wall, blocking the knight's only way. Saras nodded slightly and retorted, the gods are ignorant. They can't see through the boss's true identity, and they actually use the dragon god to slander the boss. This shows how shallow they are. And they will be punished by the boss for such an unjust act. You must evacuate immediately to save yourselves. Otherwise, the boss can spare you, but we won't let anyone go. Saras was murderous, and his voice was as loud as thunder. They were so high profile and strong. Jiu was silent for a while, and he asked the knights to stay put. A pair of tiger eyes stared at Saras and Shinhai, scanning them back and forth. The one who shouted was the Platinum Bishop Saras of the Wooden Hall. The one who released the soul skill has no soul ring on his body, something is wrong, that is the rumored deep-sea demon Whale King. The current leader of the worship of God. Jiu's pupils shrank, and he suddenly realized that there was a god-level strongman on the opposite side. If they rushed in forcefully, they would surely die. Retreat, Jiu ordered loudly. At this moment, the ground shook slightly again. Jiu was puzzled, could it be that the follow-up legion has arrived? Let them kill. A shout of killing suddenly came. Then, more than 10,000 cavalrymen came from the rear. They were wearing yellow armor, and they were from the Xingluo Empire. The leader was Prince Diao. He raised his spear and roared, those who offend the boss will be regarded as Xingluo's mortal enemies. Kill without mercy. No one will be left alive. The Xingluo cavalrymen rushed forward with murderous intent. The cavalry is the most powerful when charging. And Tiando stopped because of the obstruction of the deep sea. If they were to be attacked, they would probably suffer heavy losses in the first confrontation. Xingluo lunatics. Stop! Jiu shouted in horror. At this time, the wall of waves blocking the Tiando knights suddenly disappeared, in the tavern. The goddess of life with soft brown hair and emerald green eyes has changed into the uniform of a tavern maid. The uniform was specially made by Liu Chang'an, a small black suit, and the lower body was a skirt and black stockings. Although it was not vulgar when worn by the goddess of life, her identity as the goddess of life also gave everyone a strange sense of stimulation. Xiao, you should learn from Zhu Zhuqing first. Liu Chang'an said. Okay, boss, can I talk to the god of Shura first? Like this, the goddess of life asked cautiously. Liu Chang'an refused decisively, no, he will pay the price for what he did. A flash of despair flashed in the eyes of the goddess of life. It was over. She could only hope that she could remind the god of Shura as soon as possible, and Liu Chang'an had no intention of erasing the god of Shura. Then can I contact the god realm later? The goddess of life asked again. Of course, you can after it's over. Liu Chang'an didn't want to kill the god realm. Of course, if the goddess of life informed the god realm of the current situation and there were still people who didn't know whether to live or die, then he was not made of mud. The goddess of life breathed a sigh of relief. This was not a bad result. Liu Chang'an was not paying attention to the goddess of life, a married woman. Although he admired her very much, he tried not to destroy her marriage. His eyes swept over the faces of the crowd. Many people lowered their heads in shame because they had just chosen to leave the tavern. The customers who did not leave the tavern were full of confidence and generosity, wishing that Liu Chang'an would look at them more. Don't mind it, everyone. The tavern is doing business, not hegemony. You are free to come or not. As long as you don't have a negative impact on the tavern. I welcome you to come and challenge. Liu Chang'an smiled. His attitude made the group of people even more ashamed, and their chins almost poked into their chests. At this time, there was a sudden sound of footsteps at the door of the tavern, accompanied by the sound of inhaling. In this occasion, this atmosphere, and someone made a sound, many people turned their heads and looked over, only to see two beautiful beauties with stunning beauty almost coming in shoulder to shoulder at the door of the tavern. Bibi Dong. Qian. Their temperaments are similar, but slightly different. Compared with Bibi Dong, Qian has more charm that is hard to ignore. It was the kind of charm that made many men stand up and imagine. Bibi Dong was a mixture of ice and fire, which made them dare not blaspheme. Now the two women came in at the same time, complimenting each other, and the whole tavern seemed to be bright. Boss, I only represent myself to support the tavern and the boss. Bibi Dong began to express her position as soon as she entered the door. Kailin was next to her, looking at Bibi Dong with interest, and suddenly said, "Where is that Rakshasa god? I saw her say that she would plead for you and not let the gods hurt you." Bibi Dong frowned. This woman, is she trying to ruin her own show? Is she coming here to support the tavern and the boss because the Rakshasa god will protect her? It has nothing to do with her. The two beauties looked at each other, full of gunpowder. Chapter 192. Rakshasa God's overall situation. The most beautiful woman in the world and the second most beautiful woman in the world seemed to be born to be incompatible. As soon as they met, the smell of gunpowder between the two women was very strong. When everyone saw it, the atmosphere became much more cheerful. If you can see two stunning beauties fighting, just think about it, it's fun. Bibi Dong and Kailin looked at each other, and there was livening, but there was no further conflict. Kailin just provoked her. Bibi Dong is not the radical crazy woman in the past. The current task is not to fight to the death with the other party. Bibi Dong raised her slender jade neck, and a smile appeared on her stunning face. "Boss, you won't not welcome me, right? I don't know if I have the honor to come here and stand on the same front with the boss without permission?" Bibi Dong asked with a smile. She was very humble and sincere. The eyes of everyone present looking at Bibi Dong changed. Now, no one dared to fantasize in their hearts. The Pope said this in person, which undoubtedly showed her intentions. The most rare thing is that the other party obviously prefers to draw a line with the spirit hold and come to support the tavern owner. If the boss could not withstand the pressure of the gods, Bibi Dong would probably die. This kind of heart, any man in the world would probably be intoxicated. Liu Chang'an chuckled and said, "You should know that even if you do this, I may not give you a reward. Besides, your power really has no effect on me." Everyone was silent for a while. Sure enough, the boss is still the boss, and he doesn't understand the atmosphere. If they were in the boss's position, maybe all the beauties on the mainland list would be gathered together, and then get pregnant next to each other. And now the beauties have almost made it clear that they will be sent to the boss's mouth, but the boss is still indifferent. If it weren't for the suspicion that Zhu Zhuqing was eaten, they would all suspect that the boss likes women or is incompetent. Bibi Dong pursed her lips, and did not change her expression at all when listening to Liu Chang'an's almost inhuman words. She said calmly, "Boss, if you say that I have fallen in love with you, and love you to the point of transcending life and death, neither you nor I will believe it. Then, explain it this way, I believe you can win." Bibi Dong's eyes were bright, staring at Liu Chang'an's eyes. Liu Chang'an smiled slightly and said, "Of course, I'm invincible. You are very good. At the moment of the judgment of the gods, you can still come alone. I will reward you to refresh the number of times you challenge the earthly wine." "Thank you, boss, but you know, I'm not doing this." Bibi Dong raised the corner of her lips and said softly. Liu Chang'an humped, turned his head, and looked at the world's most beautiful woman who he personally named. The previous few times, he was separated by a distance. Although he could observe every detail, it was not as good as the beauty in front of him. He could even smell the fragrance of the beauty. Kailin's face was calm, and he said, "You brought me here. I can let you go back now." Liu Chang'an said, "I want the door's compensation." Kailin said bluntly, "Don't joke." Liu Chang'an laughed. Kailin thought for a moment and said, "Then what kind of compensation can I get from you?" Liu Chang'an was amused. This Queen Medusa was unexpectedly bold. Was it because she had never seen him take action? "You are so beautiful, but you didn't think of coming here now. You're actually walking into a trap. If I want to get you, then you will be doomed. Maybe from now on, you will become my forbidden food for eternity." Liu Chang'an deliberately frightened her. Kailin's pupils shrank and she took a half step back, but she didn't show any fear. She shook her head and said, "From what I know from Zhu Ben, you are not that kind of person. With your power, if you want to get me, no matter where I flee, I will not be able to escape. Besides, marrying a strong man like you may be a good thing for me and our tribe." Kailin looked at Liu Chang'an and said. Liu Chang'an smiled. He was really honored to be said like this by the most beautiful woman in the world. However, what people value is his strength, not him, Liu Chang'an. Good thing. Maybe. So, do you want to go back now? Or challenge the worldly wine? Or choose the wine you want? Liu Chang'an asked in a gentle voice. Kailin opened her red lips and said, "Can challenging the worldly wine really fulfill all your wishes?" "Of course." Liu Chang'an nodded with a smile. Even if I become a Dou Emperor, I can do it. You know Dou Emperor, right? Qian Lin asked. Of course, the difficulty of making you a Dou Emperor is not even as difficult as becoming a god in this world. Liu Chang'an nodded. Well, I want a challenge. Qian Lin was eager to try. The goddess of life looked at this scene, and a glimmer of hope flashed in her eyes. Perhaps, the way for the gods to break the deadlock is also in this worldly wine challenge. As long as she can succeed in the challenge, can Liu Chang'an also be exempted from the punishment of the gods? On the other side, on the battlefield outside the Tavern town, with the help of the Deep Sea, the Xingluo knights defeated Tian Dou, and only 1/10 or 1/12 of the Tian Dou knights escaped. Prince Dai jumped off his horse, came to Shanghai, and bowed. Thank you for your help, master. Shanghai shook his head and said with a smile. Prince, don't talk nonsense. We believe in the boss of the god worship sect. Unless we are bullied, we will not take action. Prince Dai was stunned for a moment, and nodded repeatedly. Yes, my memory, Prince Dai agreed, with a flash of surprise in his eyes. Even Shanghai and Saras were so calm, which meant that the tavern was not a big problem. They, the Xingluo Empire, risked being punished by the gods to come to support the tavern. He didn't believe that the boss could remain indifferent. At this time, a whistling sound came. Shanghai turned his head suddenly and looked to the north, only to see a red line rushing towards him. The dangerous aura logged onto him. Beast. Let's have a competition. An arrogant voice sounded. Tang Chen, holding a Ashen hammer in his hand, actually had a hint of divinity on his body, and rushed over. Shanghai was furious. You don't know how to live or die. Kishira, it seems that you're very afraid of me. I just came and you gave your inheritor the final test. Are you afraid that I will interfere with his inheritance? Liu Chang'an came to the front of Shiragot and others. Shiragot said coldly, get out of the way. Liu Chang'an's eyes flashed with anger, and he said coldly, Shiragot. I told you before that I will be against you forever. How? Shiragot asked. My inheritor went to the tavern to fight side by side with the Emerald Dragon King. Let her go, and I promise that I will not attack your inheritance in the future. Liu Chang'an said in a deep voice. Shiragot looked at her in surprise, and she actually bowed to him for this. Liu Chang'an sneered secretly. If Liu Chang'an's position was not too evil, how could she compromise? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 193, The Challenge of the Goddess of Life. Okay, I can promise you. God Shira nodded slightly. God Rakshasa said no more and looked at the battlefield of Tang Chen and Shanghai in the distance. The inheritor chosen by God Shira is indeed good. If she hadn't obstructed him, he would have taken over the throne of God Shira. The god of space and other elemental gods were shocked when they saw what happened just now. Oh my god, what did they see? The great reconciliation of the century. God Rakshasa actually let go of his hatred and reconciled with God Shira. If this is reported back to the god realm, it will definitely cause an uproar. The goddess of life has not responded. God Shira suddenly mentioned. God of space replied. If the Emerald Dragon King resists sincerely, with his manipulation of space, he can make the goddess of life lose contact for a period of time. Stubborn guy. God Shira sneered. The god of fire laughed and said, now, the goddess of life should be able to give up the Emerald Dragon King. We can't let him escape this time. I'm going to burn him to ashes. The god of water said helplessly, don't mess around. Once your flames leap out, ordinary water will be difficult to extinguish. It is very likely to burn the continent. I have you. The god of fire said with a smile. The god of water rolled his eyes at him and said nothing more. The gods were very confident and relaxed. It was just an Emerald Dragon King. Even if he controlled the origin of a broken world, it would never cause any waves under the joint efforts of the gods. God Realm. The remaining 3 god kings were looking down at the situation below. Asshole. Xiao Wu disappeared. You 2 bastards. Why wasn't it you in the lower realm? And what happened to the Geisha god? He is the main force. A great figure full of dilapidated aura shouted angrily. Opposite him, the 2 gods of goodness and evil smiled awkwardly and did not respond. When they discovered the Emerald Dragon King incident, they were still playing in other lower realms. It was just an Emerald Dragon King, and the God Realm Committee did not take it seriously. Now that the goddess of life has disappeared, the god of destruction can no longer sit still. Goodness and evil quickly grabbed him and persuaded him gently. Destruction, sit down first, don't get excited, don't get excited. Although the goddess of life doesn't fight much, she is the god king after all. How could she make a mistake? Yes, among the five of us, the goddess of life is the most difficult to destroy. Her position cannot be destroyed, even if, before the myth of goodness finished speaking, they even lost the sense of the goddess of life's position. ... The whole audience was silent for a moment. The god of destruction glared at the two people who were out of tune. The god of evil quickly said, wait a little longer, the sure god will be there soon. If there is any accident, we will just show up again. The god of destruction gave up and looked coldly at the light curtain in the middle. The two god kings of goodness and evil wiped the non-existent cold sweat from their foreheads. I want to see how that waste, Emerald Dragon King, dares to hurt my little green. Tell Azure a god, others can live, but Emerald Dragon King must die. I said that even the creator god can't stop me. The god of destruction said. Ding. Queen Kailin of Medusa successfully challenged the earthly wine. The host is rewarded with the power of the god king, and can choose two wines from the existing wines. In the tavern, Kailin survived 10 seconds and succeeded in that challenge. Everyone applauded excitedly. Kailin's success in the challenge means that they can also buy the wine Kailin picked. Congratulations, your wish has come true. Liu Chang'an smiled. Kailin's wish is to allow the snake people to freely shuttle between the two worlds, so that they can attack or defend. She is very determined for her people. At the same time, the report she brought to Liu Chang'an is also very rich. At this moment, even if he left the tavern, Liu Chang'an was confident that he could suppress the gods. Although he was not as powerful as he was in the tavern, he was the real him outside. When he reached the first level of divine power, he could be on par with the God King level. Now he can be regarded as the strongest in the Douluo plane. Kailin was excited, bowed slightly to Liu Chang'an, and said, I want to challenge the earthly wine again. She wanted to bring sophisticated weapons and armor to her people. You'd better think about it. Liu Chang'an said. Kailin's excited heart cooled down a little, nodded slightly, and she still listened to Liu Chang'an's suggestion and no longer insisted. She did not immediately let the snake people move over. Otherwise, these alien invasive species are likely to be attacked by the natives. Liu Chang'an proved with his actions how great this person is. At this time, the goddess of life could not sit still. Boss, I also want to challenge the earthly wine. Okay. Liu Chang'an nodded in agreement. The goddess of life picked up the earthly wine and put it to her lips, but did not drink it. She asked, Boss, if I fail the challenge, what will the punishment be? Random. Liu Chang'an said. The goddess of life suddenly panicked. The gods had previously determined that Liu Chang'an was the Emerald Dragon King because of this random. Now Liu Chang'an said that the punishment was random. He would not really think that he had failed and impose some harsh punishment conditions, right? He could not be trying to humiliate himself, right? The goddess of life hesitated. Gilliwena smiled and said, if you dare not take the responsibility, just give up. Anyway, you have become a maid in the tavern, and there is no worse result than this. ... The goddess of life looked helplessly at Gilliwena who was gloating. Without thinking too much, she drank up the earthly wine in one gulp, followed by the second bowl, the third bowl. She firmly thought in her heart that Liu Chang'an should give up punishing the gods. After drinking 3 bowls of earthly wine, the fair face of the goddess of life was covered with bright red. She held her forehead and sat down in a daze. So sleepy, her head moved up and down, her arms resting on the table, leaning forward more and more. After a few seconds, she lay on the table and fell asleep. ... The scene was quiet. Everyone looked at the goddess of life with regret. The miracles performed by the goddess of life along the way have benefited countless people, and her divinity when she came here can indeed make everyone feel the greatness of the gods. The best god in their impression is probably the goddess of life. Even if they did not successfully challenge the qualification to purchase alcohol, they hoped from the bottom of their hearts that the goddess of life could succeed. Unfortunately, at the same time, they also looked at Liu Chang'an curiously, wondering what the punishment would be. Liu Chang'an's mouth twitched slightly. Good guy, the punishment is not severe, but it is very. From now on, the clothes and sheets of the tavern employees, both inside and outside, will all be hand-washed by the goddess of life. However, what can make the goddess of life feel better is that Tuming and Erming are both incarnations of soul beasts, and the clothes on their bodies are actually fur and scales, which do not need to be washed by the goddess of life. It shouldn't be too serious, right? Liu Chang'an thought secretly. At this moment, a stumbling figure ran in. Boss, help me. Chapter 194. Azure God Shanghai was covered in blood, and he looked like a bloody man. He ran in and shouted, Boss, God is here with the element gods. The people in the tavern were in a commotion for a while, but soon calmed down. No matter how strong God is, he is still at the same level as the goddess of life. The goddess of life couldn't even withstand the boss's move, so what about God? They are all here to deliver food. Liu Chang'an looked at Shanghai and frowned slightly. He knew that this guy wanted to run away. But the other party was not a tavern employee after all. Liu Chang'an didn't care whether he ran away or not. Now he came back to report the news. Did he think he was redeeming himself? Don't act like this, it will dirty the tavern. Liu Chang'an said lightly. Okay, boss. Shanghai smiled embarrassedly, and a blue light emanated from his body. The next second, the blood stains on his clothes were washed away. Shanghai's face was still pale. He explained, Boss, God is really here. He also brought all the elemental gods, and Tang Chen from Ocean sect. The Tiando Empire is on the side of the gods. No, boss, my father was deceived by the villain. Zhu Ben in the tavern quickly argued. After seeing Liu Chang'an's power, what should he choose? Is there still any need to hesitate? If the Tiando Empire is determined to target the tavern, it will definitely not be a good end for the Tiando Empire. Liu Chang'an ignored Zhu Ben. Although he was kind, he would not turn a blind eye to the behavior that actually hindered the tavern. Bibi Dong had done something similar before, and he blocked her cultivation and walked in the mortal world. Now Eoshan and Tiando responded to the god and directly isolated the customers of the tavern, which was even more excessive than Bibi Dong's time. Come out, Emerald Dragon King, it's time for us to meet. A slightly hoarse voice sounded. Because of the protective effect of the tavern, the divine power and oppression contained in God's voice were all eliminated. Liu Chang'an raised his eyebrows slightly, and everyone looked at her. After the gods came, they openly blocked the business of the tavern, but he did not take action, not because of magnanimity, but because he was not sure of taking down the god. Now the other party has been sent to the door, and he has reached the strength of the God King. It's time to settle the accounts. Liu Chang'an walked out of the tavern first, followed by Zhu Zhuqing and other employees, and even later were the guests of the tavern. They walked out of the door of the tavern in a mighty manner. In the square outside the door, the god and other gods were facing each other from a distance. Tang Chen was behind the god, looking excited. Boss, maybe I should call you the Jade Dragon King. In any case, I got benefits from the tavern, at least I saved my life. I owe you a favor, so I want to remind you now, turn back and don't resist stubbornly. The god of space stared at Liu Chang'an's figure and asked in confusion. Something is wrong. From his breath, I can't see the shadow of the Jade Dragon King at all. Oh. He is no longer the same as before, especially you can see it. The god of fire said carelessly. The god of space nodded slightly, his eyes still doubtful. Listening to Tang Chen's words, Liu Chang'an asked. Ocean sect wants to stand on the opposite side of the tavern and affect the tavern's business, is that right? Tang Chen raised his voice. We are just doing justice for the heavens, boss, don't blame us for being ruthless. Liu Chang'an nodded slightly and said, don't blame you. Tang Chen sighed, weighed the hammer a few times, and said, the oracle is so, my hammer still has some power, I'm afraid I have to demolish this tavern, boss, don't blame me. Liu Chang'an raised his hand and aimed at Tang Chen. A circle of light immediately appeared under Tang Chen's feet, and the next moment, Tang Chen's figure disappeared. The god of space just released his divine power, but it was a step too late. He hurriedly said, Emerald Dragon King. How can you not tell me? Liu Chang'an ignored it. He looked at Tang Chen who appeared in front of him with a confused face. I will punish you. Tang Chen looked at Liu Chang'an in horror. His strength, which was raised by the god to the semi-god level, was completely like dead water. In front of Liu Chang'an, he was powerless. Broken godhood, and belonging to the Ocean sect, the quality of the Ocean hammer martial spirit will be reduced by half. Liu Chang'an suddenly thought of Qian Renxue's ending in the original book, and simply used it on Tang Chen. Puff! Tang Chen immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and his breath quickly weakened. The divine power fell into soul power again, and continued to decline from the 99 level title Luo. and the dark red Asian hammer in his hand was also shrinking. The domineering lines on it dimmed and disappeared, and the fierce breath continued to weaken. Anyone could find that the quality of the Asian hammer was decreasing. The quality of the weapon martial spirit that was once the best in the world was reduced by half, which was the level of a high-level martial spirit. No, Tang Chen almost collapsed. He regressed to Soul Luo. Tang Chen looked at the Sure God for help. The Sure God had a solemn face and raised the magic sword to Liu Chang'an. The sky was instantly covered by the red clouds that appeared, and it became a bloody light. Boom, blood-red thunder flashed through the clouds. Azure God said in a deep voice, "Have you obtained some authority of the original power?" "I'll say it one last time. I'm not the Emerald Dragon King," Liu Chang'an said calmly. He flicked his palm and the figure of the god of space suddenly appeared beside him and was suppressed in an instant. The god of space knelt down next to Tang Chen. Everyone present dared not breathe. This is the power of the tavern owner. Unmatched, immeasurable, and inviolable. What about the gods? They can suppress him with a bad hand. At this moment, they were very fortunate. If the boss wanted to subvert the Douluo Continent, I'm afraid that if he stamped his feet, this world would no longer exist. Now Azure God is very powerful, but no one is afraid or wants to hide. There is no need, it's not worth mentioning. Behind that boss, no wind or rain can invade. Go. Azure God shouted, and the terrible aura of the long sword, accompanied by countless sword shadows, rushed up from his body. The blood-red sky also began to gather countless sword lights. The aura was still rising, and more sword shadows flew out, forming a sword shadow with an extremely terrifying aura of destruction above Sure God. This seemed to be a sword that could cut off the world. Sure God panicked and shouted to Bibi Dong, who was pointing in the direction of the tavern. "You idiot! Why don't you come here quickly? Are you going to die under Sure God's sword?" Bibi Dong watched coldly without responding. The next second, Liu Chang'an slowly raised a finger. There was no special effect, just a simple poke forward. Just like popping a bubble, the sword shadow special effects in the sky disappeared. The aura of destruction. Gone. The sword shadow that cut off the sky of the earth. Gone. The sky is now blue. Sure God and others under the sky had frozen expressions, as if they had just had a big dream. The next moment, this group of people were taken into the tavern by Liu Chang'an. Chapter 195 The End of the Gods. Silence. Not only in the tavern in the underworld, but also in the god realm. The three god kings who had been paying attention to God Shura showed extremely surprised expressions. God of Destruction opened his mouth. He was about to tell God Shura to kill the Emerald Dragon King. Before he could tell him, God Shura was killed instantly. Ridiculous. Absurd. The most powerful god in the god realm could not even use his strongest attack. The three god kings could not believe what had just happened. God of Kindness patted his face and asked in confusion, "Am I dreaming just now? I seem to have seen something outrageous." God of Evil rubbed his eyes. It seems that I saw God Shura being killed instantly. Even the strongest attack was easily broken by someone. Fake. It's all fake. God of Destruction said angrily with anger in his eyes. This must be a trick of the Emerald Dragon King. He blocked our surveillance of Douluo Star. It must be like this. The real Sure God and Xiao Wu must still be fighting. I want to support them. The God of Destruction gnashed his teeth and turned to leave. The God of Goodness and the God of Evil hurriedly grabbed him. Don't be impulsive. Destruction. Although it's hard to believe, what just happened is the fact. It's impossible to deceive our surveillance. The truth is probably that the Emerald Dragon King we thought of is not. The two gods of Goodness and Evil pulled the God of Destruction on the left and right, persuading him in a deep voice. No matter what, I can't let Xiao Wu stay on Douluo Star. You'd better let him go, otherwise we'll have a fight first. The God of Destruction exuded a dangerous aura. Goodness and Evil looked embarrassed. At this moment, a voice rang out. Xiaozi, don't be rude. I'm not in danger. The voice of the goddess of life suddenly appeared. Xiao Wu? Is that you, Xiao Wu? Where are you? The God of Destruction shouted hurriedly. The voice of the goddess of life continued to ring. Xiaozi, I'm in that tavern like the god of Shura. You should have seen what just happened. I will tell you the truth now. The owner of the tavern is not the Emerald Dragon King. Now, my punishment is, fortunately, the owner said that he will not wipe out our lives. After the goddess of life finished speaking, she said, Xiaozi, don't be impulsive. One day in the god realm is 1 year in the mortal world. In total, I will be separated for more than a year at most. You must wait for me to come back obediently. No. The god of destruction was unwilling. The goddess of life said, Xiao Zi. Don't you listen to me. The god of destruction looked ugly for a while. After a long silence, he said, okay, but you have to contact me often. I have to make sure you are not in danger. Okay, the owner should allow me to do this. In the tavern, the goddess of life stood with her eyes closed, her face slightly red. She already knew the punishment for her failure to challenge the mortal wine. Now she was a little embarrassed and annoyed, and she did not dare to tell the god of destruction clearly. Otherwise, the god of destruction would definitely be impulsive. She opened her eyes and looked at the few more gods in the tavern. With a sigh, the goddess of life said, I hope the boss can be magnanimous. Liu Chang'an did not respond to her, but looked at Shurigod. As the main offender, you will bear the most severe punishment. Shurigod looked neither happy nor sad, and said lightly, can you tell me what you are? Just a tavern owner. Liu Chang'an said. Shurigod's mouth twitched. The customers bit their lips tightly. They had heard the boss introduce himself like this many times before. They felt the same as Shurigod, and they all wanted to curse. But it was the boss who was pretending to be cruel, so they could only hold it in. Especially now that Shurigod, who was said to be the strongest in the world of gods, was made to stand at attention by the boss. They had nothing to say. Your punishment is to suffer the pain of reincarnation for 100 lifetimes. Liu Chang'an waved his hand and sentenced Shurigod to punishment. The next second, Shurigod's body gradually disintegrated and turned into a little starlight, flickering a few times, and quietly disappeared. There was a silence in the tavern. Even gods seemed to be no different from them in that boss's eyes. Reincarnation for 100 lifetimes is not unacceptable. Counting the years, there is a chance that it will be less than 500 years, because Shurigod will suffer for 100 lifetimes, and he may not necessarily be reincarnated as a human. Seeing this, the god sighed. The goddess of life asked, Boss, when Shurigod returns after 100 lifetimes, will he return to the throne? Yes. Liu Chang'an nodded. The goddess of life breathed a sigh of relief, and then looked at the elemental gods worriedly. In fact, Liu Chang'an had not thought about how to deal with the elemental gods. At this time, Rakshasa left the team of the elemental gods. Although she was also taken into the tavern, she kept a distance from other gods. Seeing Shurigod being casually beaten into reincarnation, Rakshasa is now as obedient as a rabbit. What are you doing here? Didn't you call me a fool? Bibi Dong said with a smile. Rakshasa face turned pale. It has come to this point, and he is still teasing her. What if Liu Chang'an really has an opinion at her, then she will be miserable. She doesn't want to be beaten into reincarnation or something. Shut up. Rakshasa threatened through voice transmission. I made the right bet. If I talk to the boss about your matter, Bibi Dong looked at Liu Chang'an with a half smile. I surrender to you. What do you want to do? Liu Chang'an compromised. This way, Bibi Dong spoke bluntly. Liu Chang'an widened his eyes and looked at Bibi Dong in disbelief. Don't go too far, about the punishment of other elemental gods. Liu Chang'an looked at the elemental gods, and even Liu Chang'an didn't dare to argue it Bibi Dong. The elemental gods were tense. In the long years, this was probably the first time they felt fear. The god of fire gritted his teeth and sneered, others may be afraid of you, but I, the god of fire, am not afraid of you. What punishment do you want? Come on. Fire. The god of water was anxious. The god of the sea slapped his head and said in annoyance, God of fire, don't be stupid. Apologize to the boss. Liu Chang'an looked at the god of fire, do you mean to increase the punishment? The god of fire flushed, and did not answer immediately. He was silent for a while, and said aggrievedly, No, I was just excited for a moment. The god of fire lowered his head, wishing he could crawl into the crack in the ground. You will work as employees for 100 years. You have the lowest status in the tavern. You must listen to the foreman. You will have your own abilities, so you can just take on more responsibilities. Liu Chang'an ordered. The gods all breathed a sigh of relief. 100 years is not a long time for them. And Liu Chang'an did not deprive them of their divine power. The customers in the tavern looked at each other. Wow, from now on, the tavern employees who serve them have become gods. In the past, this was something they dared not even think about. Chapter 196 The Challenge of the Gods. Earthly wine can satisfy your wishes and exempt from punishment. Boss, can we continue the challenge in the future? The goddess of life looked at Liu Chang'an and asked curiously. Liu Chang'an nodded slightly and smiled, "Of course you can." The goddess of life breathed a sigh of relief. Then, their punishment might not end just like that. Maybe there is still a chance. Although she failed the challenge last time and was punished to wash underwear for everyone in the tavern. But because she had experienced it once, the goddess of life could feel that Liu Chang'an did not deliberately target her. The earthly wine challenge was completely fair. When the 7 elemental gods heard it, their eyes lit up. They were all first-level gods in the divine world, overlooking the human world. Suddenly, they were asked to be waiters in the tavern. No one could balance their hearts. Now there is a hope, and they must grasp it firmly. Is the earthly wine challenge completely fair? The god of space asked. The 7 elemental gods all looked at Liu Chang'an. Liu Chang'an nodded, of course. However, any earthly wine challenge involving the tavern, especially the earthly wine challenge related to him, will be extremely difficult. In fact, gods and mortals have no advantage in the success rate of challenging the earthly wine. Then I want to challenge first. Fire god shouted immediately. Fire. Water god held him back and shook his head slightly. Now that the nature of earthly wine has not been figured out, it may not be successful if you challenge rashly. Fire god laughed and said, Water, have you forgotten? Before we became gods, I could drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk. Now I am in the state of spirit, how can I get drunk? Spirit, the gods in the lower world have thrown away their mortal bodies and exist in the form of spirits. Since their souls, they are highly resistant to alcohol. Fire god patted the soul master beside him in a familiar way. Give us some gold soul coins to spend. The soul master was flattered and took out his wallet, trembling, and gave it all to Fire god. Oh my god, being patted on the shoulder by a god, before, it was something I dared not even think about. In comparison, what are dozens of gold soul coins? The god of fire gave Liu Chang'an 3 gold soul coins, picked up the wine bowl and drank, and said with a smile, Then my wish is to make all of our gods free from punishment. Boss, if I succeed in the challenge, can it be realized? Of course, but you don't seem to understand the rules. Liu Chang'an said lightly. The god of fire, this guy, probably thought that the earthly wine was just strong. Wait, god of fire, you have to first, the goddess of life exclaimed. Her words were still a step too late. When the god of fire finished the first bowl, he was already drunk. The second and third bowls were all instinctive, and he fainted after drinking. Bang, clean and neat. It is rare for even mortals to fail so smoothly. Ding. The god of fire failed in the challenge of the earthly wine, and the punishment is to lose the position of the god of fire. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the great way of fire. The moment the system sounded, the body of the god of fire seemed to flash. The faces of the other elemental gods changed drastically. The water god said in horror. The fire god's position has disappeared. Yes, that's his punishment. From now on, he is no longer the fire god in the true sense. The elemental gods looked different. Was Liu Chang'an playing a trick on them? He even deprived them of their position. The goddess of life sighed and said, You should listen to me first to explain the rules. The goddess of life spoke slowly and said seriously at the end, The boss will not deceive us. It is true that the earthly wine can fulfill any wish, but the difficulty, the goddess of life shook her head slightly. Goddess of life, what is your punishment? Is it as severe as the fire god? The water god said worriedly. The goddess of life's expression froze, and the others were also staring at her. No, it's still within the tolerance range. The goddess of life said awkwardly, her eyes inadvertently swept over Zhu Zhuqing and Qian. After a while, she would have to wash their underwear. The water god nodded slowly and picked up the fire god. I don't know what he was thinking. The others stared at the god curiously. Seeing that the fire god was defeated so thoroughly, these people felt a sense of balance in their hearts. Even the gods could not succeed in the challenge, so it was reasonable for them to fail. In the crowd, Zhu Ben looked unhappy. Now it was the gods who were being punished. When the boss had time, he would settle the score, right? Zhu Ben hurriedly asked his men to stop the remaining Qian Dou army, and must not add fuel to the fire. I want to challenge too. My wish is, the water god stepped forward. Liu Chang'an said, I advise you to lower the difficulty of your wish, so that the difficulty of the challenge of the earthly wine will be reduced accordingly. Yes, water god, narrow your wish to only yourself. This is not selfish, but realistic. The goddess of life said to the water god. The water god bit his lip, pondered for a moment, shook his head and said, "Thank you for reminding me. My wish is to let the god of fire and I be exempted from punishment." As he said that, the water god also drank 3 bowls of earthly wine. The gods and the crowd looked at the water god nervously. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, the water god persisted. At the 7th second, she closed her eyes and fell forward. The light god hugged her. Ding! The water god failed in the challenge of the mortal wine. As a punishment, her divine power was reduced by 10 years. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the 3,000 weak waters. 10 years of divine power is 10 years in the god realm, which is also a long time. The 3,000 weak waters is a natural magic weapon. It can be used as a moat. Flying over the weak water is prohibited. Once it falls on the weak water, even a feather will sink to the bottom of the water. Liu Chang'an didn't pay much attention to this magic weapon. Although it is said that even a god-level strongman can't pass it, it is worth seeing. I want to challenge it too, and it will also save our couple from punishment. The dark god said. A few seconds later, the dark god also fell drunk. The light god supported him with his other hand, looking helpless. The 3 elemental gods all failed in the challenge. The success rate is too low. The goddess of life said, "Let's send them to the 2nd floor first." Deming and Derman came to help, carrying the god of fire and the god of darkness upstairs respectively. Everyone looked at this scene and shook their heads secretly. They thought that the gods would be more powerful, but 3 gods in a row were like this, and the god of the sea and the goddess of life before that. Now, they are less awed by the gods. At least in the tavern, gods are no different from mortals. The remaining elemental gods communicated for a while and decided not to challenge for the time being. They should still figure out the rules of earthly wine. On the other side, Rakshasa god looked at this scene and fell into deep thought. She has been entangled with Shuragod for a lifetime, and now Shuragod has entered reincarnation. She suddenly feels a little empty and wants to find the reincarnation of Shuragod. But because of the restrictions on the position of the god, she can't leave the realm of the gods for a long time. Do a favor. Chapter 197. The Final Settlement. Shuragot's eyes scanned the faces of Liu Chang'an and Bibi Dong. Shuragod didn't know whether Liu Chang'an liked Bibi Dong or not, but Bibi Dong definitely had feelings for Liu Chang'an. She was similar to Bibi Dong back then. She couldn't get Shuragod, so she chose to be entangled with him for eternity. Why doesn't she lend a hand to Bibi Dong now? It's not only a favor, but also a dream of hers. Thinking of this, Shuragod leaned close to Bibi Dong's ear and smiled. "You're drooling. Are you drooling over the boss's body?" Bibi Dong's face changed, and she subconsciously raised her hand. "Where was the saliva?" "You." "I know what you're thinking, and you don't have to explain. Listen to me, I will fulfill your wish, just wait, and don't forget my kindness." Shuragod smiled slightly and went in the direction of Liu Chang'an. Bibi Dong raised her hand and was about to call for a stop, but then put it down again. She was not a shy girl. Just as Shuragod said, she just coveted Liu Chang'an's body, especially after he showed his unparalleled strength. At this time, Shuragod came to Liu Chang'an. She took 3 bowls of earthly wine and drank them without hesitation. Everyone's eyes were very calm. The gods challenged the earthly wine, which was no different from them. They had to get drunk. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, after the 10th second, Shuragod still didn't get drunk. She wiped the corner of her mouth and sighed. "It's amazing. This wine, no wonder even the goddess of life got drunk. It turns out that, I still didn't put it down." Shuragod bowed to Liu Chang'an and turned to leave the tavern. She has found her true heart. Everyone looked at the back of this god who seemed to have been refreshed. This guy was able to succeed in the challenge. I wonder what his wish is. The god of wind said with a smile. He was the wind of freedom and didn't care about his current situation at all. The god of space said lightly. It must be related to the god of Shura. The god of Shura, who has reincarnated for hundreds of generations, will have a hard time encountering this obstacle. The god of wind gloated. At this time, the Rakshasa passed by Bibi Dong. She pointed at Bibi Dong from a distance, and a mottled red light ball suddenly flew out and rushed into Bibi Dong's body. Bibi Dong leaned back and was in a trance for a moment. The next moment, a vigorous soul power suddenly emanated from her body. Several people around were swept away by this power and looked at Bibi Dong in surprise. In the meantime, Bibi Dong was filled with divine light, and similar changes have been seen 3 times by everyone present. Becoming a god at the 100 level. Yes, at the moment of obtaining the godhood, Bibi Dong broke through the last hurdle and was promoted to the new Rakshasa god. Unlike the evil way of becoming a god in anima, the Rakshasa god achieved in that way is too far-fetched and not pure enough. The position of a god is beyond the good and evil understood by mortals. The current Bibi Dong has become a god in a normal way. The soul masters of the Wooden Hall were excited. In this way, the Wooden Hall will have 2 god-level masters. On the other hand, the Ocean sect will be completely swept into the dust of history. Others also applauded Bibi Dong. Deming and Derming changed their expressions and were about to ask everyone to be quiet. Liu Chang'an waved his hand, indicating that there was no need to be serious. Bibi Dong came to support him when the tavern was facing a crisis of collapse. Just based on this, he deserved a little preferential treatment. And his action was seen by many people with ulterior motives, and they were jealous. At Liu Chang'an's position, every move will be studied by countless people, and the meaning behind the action. Like now, many people with a keen eye will understand that Liu Chang'an looks at Bibi Dong differently, so they should consider Liu Chang'an's attitude when dealing with Bibi Dong. At this time, Prince Diao of Xingluo Empire suddenly came to Liu Chang'an with big strides. Plop. He knelt on one knee and said in a loud voice, "Xingluo Empire apologizes to the boss." When he knelt like this, Zhu Beng's face turned pale instantly in the crowd. It's over, it's time to settle accounts. When the nest is overturned, how can the eggs be intact? Zhu Beng rushed out and knelt beside Prince Diao. Qian Dou Empire apologizes to the boss. It was a rare scene that 2 people apologized to Liu Chang'an on behalf of the empire at the same time. Everyone cast a curious look. Liu Chang'an smiled and asked, "What are you doing? What kind of crime are you asking for?" Prince Diao was about to speak. Zhu Beng immediately kowtowed and admitted his fault, saying loudly, "I report to the boss, the Tiando Empire was led by evil and actually attempted to block the tavern business. This is disrespectful. I beg the boss to punish me." Liu Chang'an raised his eyebrows slightly and ignored Zhu Beng. Zhu Beng remained in the posture of kneeling, not daring to move. What did the Tiando Empire do? Liu Chang'an only needed to think about it briefly to understand that Zhu Beng wanted to direct this disaster to Zhu Qinghe and take advantage of the situation to clear Zhu Qinghe's conspiracy. This person is very smart. He actually wanted to use this crisis to remove the shadow of the Tiando Empire. Liu Chang'an glanced at Bibi Dong. Now, he knew how to reward this timely woman. The crime of the Xingluo Empire is that it disobeyed the boss's kindness and took the action of killing. The gods came and wanted us Xingluo to block the tavern, and we learned that Tiando actually agreed first. We were filled with righteous indignation, so we led the army. Prince Diao spoke loudly, so-called admitting his mistakes, but actually asking for credit. Look, when Tiando obeyed the will of the gods, Xingluo risked offending the gods and stood with the tavern. He even raised an army for this fierce confrontation. This loyalty is witnessed by heaven and earth. Zhu Beng was so scared that he almost fell to the ground. The better Xingluo did, the more Tiando was overdoing it. If the boss asked Tiando to divide the territory to Xingluo, what would be the outcome waiting for Tiando? I'm afraid that Zhu Qinghe's problem has not been solved yet, and he will be gone before his family is solved. You were good. However, I don't want it to happen next time. The tavern does not need any support from any forces. All the soldiers you injure this time, revive and recover, and increase their soul power by 20 levels. Liu Chang'an nodded slightly. Prince Diao's breathing immediately became heavy. Reviving soldiers is not important to him, but increasing soul power by 20 levels is too terrible. Even if the current knights are almost all ordinary people, and their soul power is at most 20 or 30 levels, but all of them increase by 20 levels, it means that they will become a soul master knight group. More than 10,000 people. It can be called the first knight group on the continent. Then, all of you Xingluo descendants will have white tiger martial spirits from generation to generation, and can mutate upwards, but not downwards. Liu Chang'an added, of course he was not just saying it, everything would become a reality. If you contribute to the tavern, the blessing he made in the tavern will continue to work. Chapter 198 Rewards and Punishments. Diao was so excited about Liu Chang'an's second reward that his eyes almost turned red. With Liu Chang'an's blessing, as long as the Xingluo Empire doesn't commit suicide, there will be no problems with the inheritance of offspring. After all, it is a world of soul masters, and the royal inheritance must attach importance to martial souls. However, when a child is born, the awakening of martial souls may not be a white tiger. The probability is high, but it is not 100%. For example, the second prince of Daimubai's generation has a ghost cat martial soul, not a white tiger, so he lost the opportunity to inherit. Now with Liu Chang'an's blessing, they can only mutate to become stronger. It's worth it. Dai Dao is already satisfied with this blessing alone. Finally, the Xingluo Empire will have good weather, no natural disasters, no man-made disasters, and no disease in the next 30 years. Liu Chang'an said again. As soon as this was said, the breathing of the whole audience became heavier. This blessing is too important for an empire. 30 years of good weather, to what extent has this country accumulated? If Liu Chang'an hadn't been in charge, I'm afraid that the Xingluo Empire would swallow up Qian Dou, and even the Spirit Hall might not be able to stop it. Dai now said excitedly. Thank you for the blessing, boss. Xingluo, everyone will be grateful for your kindness. Dai now looked at Liu Chang'an with a fiery and pious look. He didn't say what the Xingluo Empire would do for Liu Chang'an. Because once it was proposed, it would most likely be rejected by Liu Chang'an. So, they had to kill first and then report. Zhu Beng's face turned pale, and his waist collapsed. He was originally in a kneeling position, but now it was more like lying on the ground. It's over, the Qian Dou Empire is over. Xingluo Empire has been prosperous for 30 years. How many civilians of the Qian Dou Empire have fled to Xingluo? In Xingluo, there are good harvests every year, and they won't get sick. Even he, the prince, is tempted. Liu Chang'an glanced at Zhu Beng lightly and said, "You all get up." Dai now stood up neatly. Zhu Beng supported the ground, his arms trembling like scythes, and he couldn't stand up. It was still an attendant who came up and helped him up. Everyone present was quite sad to see this scene. See, this is the consequence of making a wrong choice. Prince Dai Dao of Xingluo Empire was beaming with joy, while Prince Zhu Beng of Qian Dou was still worried even though it was not his order. He was afraid that his family would be gone before he returned to Qian Dou. However, the strange thing was that Liu Chang'an did not punish Qian Dou. You know, the last time Bibi Dong led the Spirit Hall to besiege the Tavern town, the Pope was kidnapped by the boss. Why was there no punishment in Qian Dou? Moreover, Bibi Dong did not seem to be rewarded. Everyone present was more and more confused. Bibi Dong blinked, looked at Liu Chang'an, and thought in her heart. No, if the boss regards me as his own and does not need a reward, it would be the best, but the boss obviously does not mean that. Now it is. Bibi Dong's eyes suddenly lit up, and she said secretly, I understand. The boss is not going to care about Qian Dou's affairs. Let's usurp the country. Thinking of this, Bibi Dong decided to test it. Bibi Dong came close to Liu Chang'an and chuckled, Boss, do you want to give me some more rewards? Although I have become a god, don't be too greedy. Liu Chang'an shook his head and looked at Bibi Dong with a smile. Bibi Dong pursed her lips and saw the answer she wanted from Liu Chang'an's smile. It's true. Liu Chang'an looked at the others and said with a smile, next, as a celebration, only today, everyone will get a free challenge to the earthly wine. Boom. The tavern suddenly erupted with enthusiasm. Liu Chang'an said to several elemental gods, you should learn from Zhu Zhuqing and others first. A hint of bitterness flashed in the eyes of the goddess of life and the elemental gods. Well, after all, they are here. From the high and mighty gods, they have become waiters in a tavern. As soon as they started working, there were more challenges. Who can refuse to be served by a real god? Avalanche didn't even know how he got out of the tavern. In the end, Liu Chang'an did not say to punish the Qian Dou Empire, but he felt a fatal danger, but he could not say it. There must be some danger that I don't know about. Zhu Beng was confused, and he left the tavern with his entourage. He must return to the palace immediately to stop his father from continuing to make mistakes. If he offends the tavern owner again, in the carriage, Kailin also came in. Zhu Beng saw her and felt a little relieved. At least Kailin was willing to fulfill her promise and help him deal with the threat of Zhu Qinghe. My queen, I want to directly expose Zhu Qinghe's identity. There must be a strong man behind her. I hope you can help me deal with it. No problem. Kailin said lightly. She didn't care about the fate of the Qian Dou Empire at all. She had already got what she wanted and could bring her people here at any time. When she thought of the beautiful rivers and mountains of the Douluo world, she was very excited. The people can live a good life. No more mouthfuls of yellow sand. Kailin thought for a moment and said to Zhu Beng, give me a fief. If one day that Xingluo Empire sends troops to attack, I will help Qian Dou block the army. Zhu Beng heard this and his face suddenly became ecstatic. He hurriedly said, okay. queen, wait for the good news. Zhu Ben was so excited that he danced with joy. This was the only good news he had ever received. The Qian Dou Empire didn't care about the gains and losses of a piece of land when giving Kailin a fief. Unlike the Xingluo Empire, which only had one tributary kingdom and entrusted Xingluo, Qian Dou had divided many kingdoms and principalities. Giving Kailin a country and getting a reward for countering Xingluo, there is no better deal than this. At the same time, the people of the Ocean sect were on their way to the Tavern town. Suddenly, everyone in the team sprayed blood. Tang Xiao, who was at the front, groaned, covered his chest, and looked panicked. Something is wrong. This, my martial soul, the quality is decreasing. Tang Xiao summoned his martial soul, the Ocean hammer, and saw that there were no lines on his hammer, and the quality was much worse. And his spirit power aura was also weakened. Mine too. I dropped a level. Why is this happening? My clear sky hammer has become worse, it feels lighter. What sound is ringing in my mind? ... The people of the Clear Sky sect were shouting, and a voice appeared in everyone's mind. It was the punishment from Liu Chang'an. Tang Xiao's face changed drastically, and he murmured, Grandfather made the wrong choice. Now, the Clear Sky sect is finished. Without the Clear Sky hammer, it is no longer the world's #1 weapon spirit. The elder slapped his thigh in annoyance. I said we shouldn't surround the tavern. It's not like there haven't been gods coming down before, but they were killed instantly by the tavern owner. Now our Clear Sky sect is finished. Chapter 199 Ambition Puff. In the Oceans and mansion, Tang San suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood, which happened to land on Tang Ao's face. Tang Ao also spit out a mouthful of blood at the same time, and was washing his face with Tang San. The synchronized actions of the two shocked Tang Yui who was watching. What's wrong with this father and son? It was Tang San who was obviously going to feed Tang Ao medicine. Why did he suddenly vomit? Tang San covered his chest and put down the medicine bowl. A small hammer suddenly appeared in his hand. My martial soul became weak. It's the boss's punishment. What do you mean? What's wrong with you, Shozan? Tang Yui looked at Tang San with concern. She is a mutant martial soul and does not have the Ocean hammer, so naturally she will not be punished. Tang San wiped the blood from his mouth and said, Aunt, the ancestor Tang Chen offended the tavern owner, and the boss's punishment for our Oceans is, you mean, the gods lost? Tang Yui covered her mouth and said in astonishment. I'm afraid it's like this. Tang San's eyes flashed with a strange light. He was not discouraged. He had successfully challenged twice and had the confidence to continue to win. At worst, I can make a wish later to make my martial spirit stronger. Tang Yui's face turned pale. She couldn't imagine that even the gods couldn't do anything to the tavern. At this time, Tang Ao was hit and sobered up a lot. Ha ha ha, I am Tang Ao. I turned out to be Tang Ao. It turns out that I am the one who deserves to be killed the most. Good. I should make a break for the old grudges. Tang Ao broke free from the chains on his body. Tang San said anxiously, Dad, don't, remember, I'm not your father, don't scream anymore. Tang Ao glanced at Tang San coldly and flew away quickly. Tang San looked anxious. What should I do now? Uncle and the others went to besiege the tavern, and I don't know when they can come back. Tang Yui ran out of the room quickly. She had to stabilize the situation. A few days later, Zhu Ben and Kailin returned to Qian Dou City. They encountered several waves of troops along the way. Under Kailin's strong suppression and Zhu Ben's notification, the army gave up besieging the tavern. This experience also made Zhu Ben completely realize that he must show his talents and fight for power. Otherwise, the Qian Dou Empire will be finished sooner or later. After the announcement, Zhu Ben brought Kailin into the palace and met Emperor Zhu. There was also Zhu Qing in the room, who was already able to use her male body, and Prince Zhu Zhuqing. As soon as Zhu Ben entered, he said anxiously, Father, Qian Dou has made a big mistake. Shut up. What nonsense are you talking about, you ignorant auntie? Emperor Zhu glared at Zhu Ben unhappily. Compared with Zhu Qing, this unpromising son was just a piece of mud that could not be helped. Often when he glared, Zhu Ben would shrink his neck in fear. But this time, Zhu Ben did not show the slightest sign of shrinking. He looked directly at Emperor Zhu and said in a deep voice, Father, do you know what happened? We, Qian Dou, were almost about to be destroyed. How dare you? You rebellious son. Are you trying to piss me off to death? Emperor Zhu was furious. No emperor would like to hear such words. He glanced at Kailin behind Zhu Ben, a hint of greed flashed in his eyes, and then he became even more furious. He thought Zhu Ben was presenting a beauty to him, but it turned out that he was here to disobey him. Zhu Ben. Calm down. Where did you hear this gossip? You followed it and learned bad things. When the gods come, how can you not take down a tavern? Prince Zhu Zhuqing frowned and tried to smooth things over for him. Zhu Qinghe smiled slightly and said, Zhu Ben, stop talking nonsense and don't make father angry. Zhu Ben sneered and said, Zhu Qinghe, should I call you by this name or something else? Stop pretending here. I guess you were thinking about how to kill me. I tell you, I will expose you now. Zhu Qinghe was stunned for a moment, and a deep color flashed in his eyes. The anxiety on Prince Zhu Zhuqing's face also disappeared. Since Zhu Ben had already brought up the topic, he would not pretend anymore. Success or failure depended on this one move. Prince Zhu Zhuqing winked at his followers and said, Zhu Ben, if you are not crazy, just say it clearly. Okay, but I hope that while I am talking, my father can call out the guards to protect his safety and prevent Zhu Qinghe from jumping off the wall. Zhu Ben said with a serious face, pointing at Zhu Qinghe. You rebellious son. You just say some nonsense. Do you think I am stupid? Get out. Emperor Zhu Yi roared angrily. Zhu Ben said anxiously, my queen, please do it. Kailin's body swayed slightly, her face changed, and she looked at Zhu Qinghe in surprise. Just now, she wanted to burst towards the other party, but she couldn't move at all. Liu Chang'an's voice rang in her mind, this person, don't move. Kailin gave up at this time. Since it was the boss who took action, she couldn't resist anyway. My queen, Zhu Ben looked at Kailin stiffly. Kailin shook her head slightly and didn't answer. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Zhu Ben looked terrified, it was bad. The next second, the furious voice of Emperor Zhu Yi sounded, enough. Suppress this rebellious son for me. What's going on? Let him reflect on himself. Father, calm down, Zhu Qinghe swallowed her saliva. Just now, she really felt the threat of death. If Kailin was not good for her, could she still hold on? Zhu Ben was taken away by several guards who came in. Prince Zhu Zhuqing looked at him helplessly, and also stood beside Zhu Qinghe to plead for Zhu Ben. Shut up. Don't make this distinguished guest laugh at you. Emperor Zhu Yi snorted coldly. When he looked at Kailin, his anger just now seemed to have disappeared, and his expression changed rapidly. Zhu Qinghe and Prince Zhu Zhuqing were both silent. Stupid emperor. Zhu Qinghe returned to her mansion. After returning, she immediately called Snakespear Luo and Thorny Porpoise Luo who were secretly protecting her. Uncle Snakespear, you immediately return to Wuhan City and help me. Zhu Qinghe wanted to ask the Wuhan Hall for their opinion. Now the Wuhan Hall seemed to have no intention of usurping Tiandou. If the Tiandou royal family found out about the problem, a war would definitely break out. Fortunately, Emperor Zhu Yi did not doubt it. Instead, he detained Zhu Ben and focused his mind on Kailin, the most beautiful woman in the world. After learning the whole story, he actually obeyed Zhu Ben's agreement and planned to give Kailin a fiefdom. Zhu Qinghe had to be thankful that Emperor Zhu Yi was a tyrant who loved beauty, but now Zhu Ben had discovered something and revealed it in public, so it would be exposed sooner or later. No need, shouts you, ha ha ha, a cheerful laugh rang out. Zhu Qinghe and the two Douluo turned their heads and saw the white-haired and stern young man walking in. The Pope made the right bet, and the boss acquiesced to our actions. Chapter 200. Changes in the Heavenly Dou Tavern. What a tavern? Zhu Qinghe's mouth showed a complicated smile. Because of the tavern, Bibi Dong changed the inclination of the spirit hall, which put her in an awkward situation. Now, with the acquiescence of the tavern, she can continue to usurp the Heaven Dou Empire. It seems that the whole situation in the world is determined by the tavern. In this case, what are they still working hard for? Just relying on pleasing the tavern owner, isn't it more intuitive and effective than practicing soul power and gathering soul masters? Zhu Qinghe doesn't like this, or any ambitious person doesn't like this situation of being controlled by others. However, she is more worried about Bibi Dong's state. She shouldn't find a stepfather for herself, right? Although the strength of the tavern owner is indeed terrifying. Guangling Duo smiled and said, otherwise, how can you say that you are worthy of His Majesty the Pope? We have so many priests and elders who dare not gamble, and at most they just don't help each other, but only His Majesty the Pope is decisive and has a pair of wise eyes. Listening to Guangling Duo's praise, Zhu Qinghe's smile became more bitter. What she was afraid of was not the influence of Bibi Dong's wise eyes, but the love brain attack. In this case, we may be more decisive. Zhu Qinghe suppressed his complicated emotions and said, how to be decisive. Huang Glingduo sat on the table, crossed his legs, and looked like a naughty boy. Take advantage of Tiando's offensive to the tavern to pull Emperor Zhu down. Kill the princes such as Wei Ben, and I will directly ascend the throne as the emperor. Zhu Qinghe's eyes flashed with a fierce light. Snake Spear and Thorny Porpoise Luo looked at Zhu Qinghe in surprise. Huang Glingduo applauded. You are worthy of being the granddaughter of the great priest. Good job, Xiao Wu. Since the boss has agreed, why don't we do it this way? Well, now, we have to start from 3 aspects: exaggerate the strength of the tavern and what Tiando has done, and cause people's hearts to fluctuate. And I will unite a group of nobles. Zhu Qinghe arranged in an orderly manner. The prince's mansion. Zhu Beng said so many nonsense in front of Emperor Zhu. Although it was later confirmed by a letter that the Tiando Empire had indeed bet on the wrong horse and was in a dangerous situation, Emperor Zhu was still concerned about his reputation and did not say to release Zhu Beng. Zhu Beng was sulking in the room. He had made his words clear, but his father, the incompetent emperor, did not believe him. Could it be that he had been playing the pig and eating the tiger for so long that he had been completely regarded as a pig? Prince Zhu Zhuqing came to see him with a complicated face. You are too anxious. Zhu Beng. You're exposing yourself. Do you know, Zhu Beng said helplessly. Who knows how Queen Medusa failed at the critical moment? If she is willing to cooperate, it will definitely succeed. But no. Alas, my brother really cares about the most beautiful woman in the world, Prince Zhu Zhuqing sighed. Zhu Beng pouted, he is just coveting my body. Never mind, anyway, looking at his appearance, it is impossible for him to find out that Zhu Qinghe is wrong. However, I am safe after making such a fuss. Zhu Qinghe will not kill me. Prince Zhu Zhuqing nodded slightly, looking at his nephew. A sympathetic look flashed in his eyes. With Zhu Beng's ability, if he could take over the throne, he would definitely be a great emperor, far better than Emperor Zhu, but it was a pity that he met Zhu Qinghe. Therefore, he has been desecrating himself for more than 10 years, deceiving everyone, but it also made Emperor Zhu have a deep impression of him. Uncle, tell me about the recent things. Zhu Beng smiled bigly. Prince Zhu Zhuqing began to tell. After listening, Zhu Beng's brows frowned more and more, and he said worriedly, Uncle, I feel a sense of danger looming. We must stop this trend. Otherwise, Zhu Qinghe may come to power. What do you mean? The tavern has shown such a powerful side, it is normal for people's hearts to be unsettled. Prince Zhu Zhuqing asked in confusion. No, something is wrong, Uncle. Go contact the 9-Life Dragon, Marshal Jilan, only he can stabilize the situation. Zhu Beng said anxiously. He had already seen Zhu Qinghe's hand. Father, the tavern did defeat the gods, and enslaved them, making them employees of the tavern. Now all the major forces know about it. And the vanguard knights we sent out were wiped out by the Xingluo Empire, Zhu Qinghe reported to Emperor Zhu. Before that, she had spread the news. Now all the nobles of the Tiando Empire know what happened in the tavern and what stupid things Tiando did. Emperor Zhu's face was pale, and he said in horror. Really? How is it possible? That's a real god. Zhu Qinghe nodded and said in a deep voice. It's true, father, we must take measures. I heard that the Xingluo Empire has been blessed by the tavern, and although the tavern did not punish us, but, what should we do? Do you want me, the emperor, to take the blame? Emperor Zhu said irritably. Zhu Qinghe was silent, and silently added in his heart. As long as you abdicate and issue a confession of guilt, it will be fine. Emperor Zhu held his forehead, his face pale, and said. Fortunately, I have won over Miss Kailin. With her blocking the army for us, we can be safe for a while. Qinghe, do you think I can enthrone her as the queen? Zhu Qinghe's mouth twitched. This old pervert didn't even consider his image. If he really dared to mention this to Queen Medusa, wouldn't he be afraid that she would get angry? Zhu Qinghe was silent for a moment and said, Father, I think we can kill the chicken to scare the monkey, so that those nobles who have different intentions will be intimidated by the Tiando imperial power and prevent them from doing wrong things. Emperor Zhu pondered for a moment. He vaguely sensed that something was wrong, but now his mind was busy and he couldn't think of the problem for a while. Well, okay. Emperor Zhu suddenly felt tired. The huge Tiando Empire has fallen into its current embarrassing situation because of the wrong investment. And people in the Tiando Empire are now in a state of panic. Under Zhu Qinghe's design, the nobles all knew about the tavern and had all kinds of worries. The punishment for the tavern owner has not yet been issued, but it is this waiting process that is the most torturous. And now Emperor Zhu is blindly suppressing and executing several nobles. Not only did it not calm the situation, but it became even worse. Of course, these have nothing to do with Kailin. Kailin doesn't care about the mess in the Tiando Empire. She just wants to find a fiefdom for her people. If she doesn't give it to her, she will rob it. Fortunately, Emperor Zhu readily agreed, but said that it would take some time. Kailin could see that the old pervert just wanted to keep her. The men in this world seem to be very lustful, and when they look at her, there is greed in their eyes. Perhaps the only exception is Liu Chang'an, who has no waves at all. It even makes Kailin think that she has lost her charm. Anyway, everything is getting better. Bring Yume here first. Kailin thought, raised her hand, and a bronze door suddenly appeared in front of her. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.